And from it, we still don't know why the power went out. 19 minutes after 6 o'clock on this here Sunday on the island. Sunday, June 28, 2026. We still don't know why the power went out. We're going to come back to that. Talking about everything else. Third country deportation, third country removal, third country nationals. So many euphemisms for the blatant human rights violation of people across the world, starting in the United States, and aided and abetted by Caribbean governments, African governments, and other governments across the world. So we're talking about that, and we're talking about so much more, but we still don't know why the power went out. Jamaica experienced a total blackout, total darkness just a few days ago. Total darkness, total blackout. For 8 hours, the power went out. Where were you when the lights went out? And we still don't know why the power went out. We've moved on. We're talking about everything else. But the apocalypse that happened when the power went out and the entire nation went black, we no longer talk about. Do we no longer care? Don't we want to know what happened and how that is likely to affect us going forward? We still don't know why the power went out. Very, very interesting times. But we've got so much to get through. You know, we're waking up this morning to sad news. Yesterday, actually, we heard that the wife of the Nation of Islam, Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, transcended. Mother Khadija transcended. And I know her. I met her many times. I've interviewed her quite a few times along the way. I think the first time I met her, it was in 1992. I think it had to be 92 in Ghana. And I remember how fascinated I was. Yeah, she's on the screen for those who are watching on YouTube or Facebook or IG. That's her. That's a woman I met in Ghana. Beautiful, brilliant, stately. And she was walking with a group of women, and they were all dressed in white. And we were staying at the same hotel. We were in Ghana for one of the big events. I think it might have been Panafest. And we stayed at the same hotel with that Louis Farrakhan, Minister Farrakhan, was staying at with his family. Rita Marley was staying at that hotel too. And so too was Isaac Hayes. I mean, we were at breakfast and we just saw these people coming down, Sister P and myself. What was it? Nina Simone, Isaac Hayes, Louis Farrakhan, Mother Khadija. That was massive at that time in Ghana. And I interviewed her then in Ghana. Years after, I attended the Million Women's March? And I interviewed her again. And then there was a Million Family March. And interviewed her again. So I've interviewed her. And then she came to Jamaica with Minister Farrakhan. So I've interviewed her a few times. I've had conversations with her many times. And she is, as you see her on screen, just a beautiful soul, a beautiful woman who's very patient, very kind, and always making time. This is something I noted with her. One of our sisters has written a really great tribute for her that I have kind of, added my bits and pieces to it, but I've used the skeletal framework of our sister's tribute, Angela Dennis. And I'm going to be just taking you through, reminding you of who this great woman Mother Khadija Farkan Muhammad is. We are pausing to honor the life of a remarkable woman whose influence reached far beyond her own family and far beyond the nation of Islam. On Friday, the world said farewell to Mother Khadija Farkan, beloved wife of Minister Louis Farkan, devoted mother, humanitarian, educator, designer, and a woman remembered by thousands simply as mother. Mother Khadija was born Betsy Ross on November 26, 1935 in Boston, Massachusetts. She grew up in the Catholic Church in a home where, according to her daughter, Kalada, there was always enough. There was food on the table, a roof overhead, and an education, and above all, love. Those simple values would shape the woman that Mother Khadija became. In September 1953, she married Louis Farkan, and 2 years later, in 1955, they both accepted Islam and embarked on a journey that would span more than 7 decades of marriage, service, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to faith and to community. Of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It was a name she carried with dignity for the rest of her life. But Mother Khadija was never defined simply as a wife of a prominent leader. When the Nation of Islam entered one of the most difficult periods in its history, and Minister Farkan resolved to rebuild the movement in 1977, it was Mother Khadija who gave him the confidence to move forward. Her words were simple but powerful. She said, "Go on with it. I am with you." Those words become part of history. Their family home became the movement's headquarters. She cooked meals for workers. She welcomed strangers as family. She helped establish the communications and administrative systems that strengthened the organization, while also designing the uniforms worn by generations of women in the Nation of Islam. Minister Farkan often acknowledged that none of his accomplishments could be separated from Mother Khadija's steadfast support. He once said, "My wife has been with me throughout all of my striving." And perhaps even more beautifully, he said, "I would not be who I am if God didn't bless me with who she is." Those words speak not only of love, but of partnership. Those who knew Mother Khadija described a woman of extraordinary warmth. Visitors remembered being welcomed as though they had been family forever. Friends spoke of her grace, kindness, humility, and unwavering purpose. Her daughter Khaleda recalled that no one was ever left outside her mother's circle of care. Children without parents became her children. And for my own self, I experienced that very situation with Mother Khadija. Families in need became her family. Whenever she traveled in the world, or wherever she traveled in the world, she looked first for those who needed help the most. She believed that service was love in action. In 1997, addressing the Million Women March in Philadelphia, Mother Khadija reminded the audience that a nation can rise no higher than its women. Yet she also reminded them that true progress belongs to the entire family, to men, women, and children rising together. For more than 2 decades, that philosophy came alive through Mother Khadija's Children's Village at Saviour's Day. Thousands of children passed through its doors, receiving books, toys, learning opportunities, encouragement, and perhaps most importantly, the feeling that someone cared. Every child mattered. Last November, hundreds gathered in Chicago through the snow and through the cold to celebrate Mother Khadija's 90th birthday. Musicians, community leaders, family members, and friends came to honor a life that had quietly touched countless others. Even music legend Stevie Wonder joined the celebration, calling her the sunshine in the lives of so many before serenading her with "You Are the Sunshine of My Life." Today, those words carry even greater meaning. Mother Khadija Farrakhan leaves behind a legacy built not through titles or headlines, but through compassion, quiet strength, generosity, and unwavering faith. She leaves behind her beloved husband of 72 years, Minister Louis Farrakhan, 8 surviving children, grandchildren, extended family, and a worldwide community that knew her not simply as a leader's wife, but as a mother. As we remember her and her life, we are reminded that history is not only shaped by those who stand at the podium. Often it is shaped by those who stand faithfully beside them, encouraging, nurturing, serving, and sacrificing without seeking recognition. Mother Khadija Farrakhan was one of those women. May her life's example continue to inspire generations to serve with humility, to lead with compassion, and to love without limits. May she rest in eternal peace. Yet appear to be. Rightly to aim in all these cases is a wise man's task, in the words of Epictetus. You know, we normally say this twice. Appearances to the mind are of 4 kinds. Things either are what they appear to be, or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they're not and yet appear to be. Rightly to aim in all these cases is a wise woman's task, the wise man's task. My task, your task, for me task, for we task. We've been looking at the discussion around the third party, the third country deportees, third country nationals, third country removal. And we're seeing where just 2 days ago, there is a ruling coming out of the United States Supreme Court that has given the Trump administration the green light to go ahead and deport or to revoke, if you think of it in a bigger picture, the temporary protective status given to Haitians and to Syrians, I think, to Syria, Haiti, and is it also possibly Sudan? Not sure, but let me give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. The Supreme Court says the Trump administration can end legal protections for many U.S. residents from Haiti and Syria. Decision on Haitians, Syrians in the temporary protective status programs could have ramifications for migrants from other countries. Now, this fits right into the third country deportee conversation that we're having, because now Haitians will also be sent back. So if they're not deported to Haiti, then they're going to be deported to third countries. The question is whether or not the Jamaican government will accept Haitians returning or being sent as third country nationals. The question arises because the Dominican Republic, under the shield of the Americas, has signed an MOU with the government, with the U.S. government, regarding third country deportees, third country forced removal. And in that MOU, the Dominican Republic specifically, there are two things that are specific to that MOU and the signing of that MOU between the Dominican Republic and the U.S. government. One, Haitian nationals are not included. There's only a wall that separates Haiti from, as a matter of fact, they're just building the wall. Nothing separates Haiti from the Dominican Republic. It's the same land. It's a place we used to call Hispaniola. It's one land, Hispaniola, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic, in the MOU that they've signed with the U.S., that's for third country deportees, have said that two things. One, they will not accept Haitians, and two, to receive third country deportees or third country nationals under the shield of the Americas. They have signed off on two particular things. One, no Haitians. Two, the Iranian National Guard and Hezbollah are terrorist organizations. The Jamaican government is deliberately keeping the MOU that they have signed with the United States away from the people of Jamaica. There's a reason for that. I think it is because it looks very close. Remember last week, by the way, my name is Kabu. My name is Kabu, and you're Peter over there. We didn't even introduce ourselves because we were just going to say, remember Peter. But remember, Peter, last week we were talking about the fact that America has signed off on this, Jamaica signed off on this MOU with the United States because Jamaica wants to get into the shield of the Americas. What is the shield of the Americas? I think we have something there, Peter, a graphic that speaks to Jamaica's the three-zone alignment in CARICOM, but also I think a little bit more about the shield of the Americas. I'm not quite sure, but you should have that. 4 layers of hemispheric control and so on. Anyway, Jamaica's position. So the shield of the Americas. So they have signed off on the shield of the, well, they're not in the shield of the Americas. I want to take you back. I have to take you back. I have to take you back to when that very time, that it's a few months ago, might have been last year, when the United States, right on the back of Davos, remember when the World Economic Forum session, and a few months ago, and Donald Trump was at Davos, Mark Carney was at Davos. Mark Carney talked about the rules-based order and that it was ruptured, and things were heading into the new world order, and so on and so forth. There was a series of activities that were carried out by the Trump administration, and they were all happening at once. One was that they'd gone into Gaza and had the Board of Peace. Remember the Board of Peace? We had a discussion about the Board of Peace in this place. We said the Board of Peace was in effect replacing the United Nations. Then they came into the Caribbean and they formed the Shield of the Americas, and we told you the Shield of the Americas was replacing the Organization of American States, the OAS. Give me a minute there. Should I take a break and drink my coffee or drink? Okay, hang on there for me. Hang on, I'm coming. So, this is interesting. We have to pay some attention to this. Let me take this break and come back. So, the Board of Peace, we spoke about it in this space, remember. They also came into the Caribbean and they formed the shield of the Americas. We spoke about that. We also told you at the time that we were going through, yes, it was a rupture, yes, it was a change, yes, they're destroying the old order to go into the new order. COVID was the start of it. As a matter of fact, we've been telling you about this from COVID, that COVID was the material manifestation of the beginning of the rupture, destroying the old order to start the new order. It was a global reset. If you remember, Klaus Schwab, he came out first and he said that we're going to need a global reset. Then Prince Charles at the time, gave this massive speech at Davos where he talked about us being in a global reset. That's 2019, 2018, thereabouts. And since that time, they've had like Project 2025. They're talking about the Great Replacement Theory. Remember now, the Great Replacement Theory feeds right into Project 2025, feeds right into the Board of Peace, feeds right into the Shield of the Americas. We have to know these terms in the same way we know what the WHO is for, in the same way that we know what the United Nations is for, in the same way that we know UNICEF and the FAO and all of these organizations and institutions. We have moved away from those and we're moving into a new world order. They are in fact destroying the old order for a new world order, and they're doing that on the back of what they call the Great Replacement Theory. For those who are watching on YouTube, we have a definition of what the Great Replacement Theory is on the screen. We have quite a bit up there. Peter has put up. We're going to get some time to go back to that at another time. But you can see the graphics there on the Great Replacement Theory. First of all, it's important to point out that it is based in racism. It is a belief that immigration, especially of non-white people, is a deliberate plan to replace white population and erode their political, cultural, and demographic influence. This is something that is pushed by Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all of them who are now prominent actors in what we see happening here. This is how Nigel Farage is coming to power in the United Kingdom. This is a belief. Project 2025 is written by people who are coming from the Margaret Thatcher School. As a matter of fact, Project 2025 is coming from the Heritage Foundation, which is built on Thatcherism and built in the vein of Margaret Thatcher. These are people who are coming from that school. So it's all connected. Everything is connected. Do not get it twisted. Every single thing is connected. Now we come back to the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic, when they came into the Caribbean to form the Board of Peace, remember the countries that are on the Board of Peace. Remember, Jamaica is not on the Board of Peace. Jamaica is not a country that is on the Board of Peace. Trinidad is there, Trinidad and Tobago. Guyana is there, and the Dominican Republic is there. Remember at the time we told you that the Board of Peace is replacing the Organization of American States. If you check now to see what's happening with the OAS, you'll see that the OAS is almost like they're in a frenzy. They're doing 100 different things at the same time. And the news is out there about where the OAS is and what the OAS is doing. And all of that is happening as the Board of Peace is ramping up its influence in the Caribbean. The third country deportation or the third country nationals conversation we're having cannot be had without discussing the Board of Peace. We told you that last week. We know that a lot of us are saying that Jamaica was forced to sign the MOU. But remember last week I said, well, it might, you see, you can talk about being forced, right? Because of where we are now with the Monroe Doctrine and the Donroe Doctrine 2.0. And so Jamaica feels that it cannot say no to the U.S. Okay, fine. But I am of the view, strongly of the view, I will debate you to the ground on this, that Jamaica requested participation in the third country deportation, third country removal third country forced removal, third country national situation. The United States is not lying. The document, the cable from the United States Embassy to the U.S. Department of State Department, that pointed to a Jamaican minister or somebody operating at the time, possibly as an ambassador, requesting this of the minister of the United States government. It is true. They are obfuscating. Listen, they're telling us that no, there's an overlap of two different things. But my colleague, who we used to be pretty close back in the early days, way back in the days, I don't know if you remember, but we used to have them whole heap of conversations back in the very, very early days. Cliff Hughes, right, interviewed Andrew Holness. What an interesting interview. Did you see it? I made a point of watching it live. Very interesting interview. If you haven't seen it, it was nationwide. Cliff Hughes interviewing the Prime Minister. And the whole production was brilliant, by the way. Congratulations to Nationwide for doing that production, having him drive up to the car park, walking out of the car, shaking hands, walking up the stairs, and Cliff is sitting in the studio waiting. It's a movie, really, really good. I mean, that deserves an Emmy, Cliff, your second Emmy, if you ask me. Good performance. And I mean that sincerely. Now, when he got there, the Prime Minister, he said to Cliff Hughes that he was in a rush because he was heading to Suriname and Guyana. And we have seen him since in Suriname and Guyana. They have rolled out the red carpet for him. They're talking about energy, among other things. So we know there was truth to that. But it's interesting. So he squeezed in the interview right in the middle. That interview had to happen. It had to happen. If not Cliff, then somebody else. It would have been a press conference or a statement made at the airport or something. You know why? Because the Prime Minister has to get ahead of the Board of Peace. And we said on this program last Sunday, that all of this goes right back to the Shield of the Americas. He has to get ahead of the Shield of the Americas. I want to tell you something. And I say to my colleagues in the media, you cannot have this discussion about the third country nationals or the third country deportees without understanding the Shield of the Americas. The Shield of the Americas is replacing the Organization of American States. It is rising above the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. It's a big boy in the region. It is in the same room as the Monroe Doctrine. It's a massive thing. It's not a small thing. And I know people are not paying attention to it, but it is a security organization, and it is meant for something. Now, the Shield of the Americas, it's an official U.S. government initiative, and it's our I think, job is to find out how broadly the umbrella extends the Shield of the Americas. The third country deportation agreements, the military cooperation, and you see the military cooperation written into the MOU signed by the Dominican Republic. Remember now, even though the Dominican Republic has not released all of the MOU, there is enough from the Dominican Republic's MOU and enough reporting on the MOU signed by the Dominican Republic to understand what Jamaica signed. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you want to understand what Jamaica signed, there are many ways to do it. One, look at what Eswatini signed. Look at what Sudan, Sierra Leone. There are African countries you can look at. But I would say in this instant, look at the Dominican Republic, right? Military cooperation is written into the MOE, into the Board of Peace, into the Shield of the Americas, military cooperation written into the Shield of the Americas. The warship that was in HORACE Pier from the 18th, I think it was, for many days. That warship in the HORACE Pier. And by the way, the warship that came to the HORACE Pier, the USS Fort Lauderdale, that ship is still in the Caribbean waters. It's written into the Shield of the Americas. This is beyond the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. So the USS Fort Lauderdale is still in the Caribbean waters. It's on the Venezuelan coastline, and less than two catastrophic earthquakes have happened in that region, in the Venezuelan coastline, in recent times. One 7.2, 7.5, and there was another one 4.8, and another one 4.2. A lot of earthquakes happening in the Caribbean waters since the lot of earthquakes happening in the Caribbean waters. If you notice, when the USS Fort Lauderdale that you're seeing on the screen, when the USS Fort Lauderdale was in the HORACE pier for 3 or 4 days, no cruise ship came in. The USS Fort Lauderdale carries 700 Navy soldiers, officers. Where are they? Where did they go? Did they put on t-shirt and shorts? Jamaica, no problem. Yemen, what a guan. And walking up and down with blending with the tourists in Ochi. Ochi is a tourist town. If you go there, you don't know anything. You don't know who is who. 700 Navy soldiers, Navy officers could be walking up and down in Island Village Plaza or any plaza, and you just wouldn't know. All them have to do is just put on, and not only that, they just put on them shorts and them flip-flops and go Duns River and them things, and everything is good. No, but the point I'm making is that while that warship was in Ochi Pier, remember Ochi were there, right? Peter, don't the ship, tourist ship come in very often? Very often, like 2, 3 times, 4 times a week. Yeah, well, no ship never come in that time there, not even one. All right. So maybe the Ministry of Tourism can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they came in at night. But the Shield of the Americas, if you read, one of the things that we're not doing as a people is that we're not reading. All of this, the information regarding Jamaica Security Corporation, if you put that up again for me, Peter, we have been showing you this for a few weeks now, right? The U.S. Counterterrorism Strategy 2026 has been published. We haven't read it. I've read it. I've also gone in and done a summary of it. And we keep putting, every single week we talk about it. Focus on the Caribbean, focus on Africa. It feeds right into the Shield of the Americas. The countries that are outside of the Shield of the Americas are not favored countries. So if Jamaica participates in the Shield of the Americas or in Shield-related initiatives or signs additional migration agreements with the United States, those arrangements could become part of a wider regional security situation, right? So whether a specific agreement is formally under the Shield, this depends on the legal text and the official designation. Why are we pointing this out? We are pointing this out because this is a strategic situation that Jamaica has done. Jamaica feels it has to do this because Jamaica is best friends with the Dominican Republic. Go again and look. Jamaica's best friend in the Caribbean, in the region, is the Dominican Republic. The Caribbean states occupy important sea and air routes between North America and South America. Their participation strengthens that whole regional network that the United States want. Carrie Lake talked about that security apparatus and what she was coming into Jamaica to do with focus on China. We have been telling you for a very long time that nothing you see happening here is about Cuba. All of it is about China. The Cold War is not so cold anymore. The Cold War is very warm to hot, nearly boiling, and Jamaica is making a strategic decision to get status in the Shield of the Americas, and that is why they have signed the third country deportation, third country national thing. Now, Here's my thinking on it. When Prime Minister Holness spoke to Cliff Hughes last week, the first question Cliff asked him was about this thing here, and whether or not Jamaica had requested it. Now, I want you to go back and listen to the Prime Minister's first answer, because he said that the ambassador at the time had gone to represent him at an event. No, Andrew Holness is not dunce, you know. He's brilliant. I'm telling you this, he's brilliant. He's not dunce. Whether I have a PhD, yes or no. And he knows exactly what he's doing and what he's saying. Now listen to how he answered the question. He said, she had gone to this event on my behalf. I think it had to do with the Shield of the Americas. Why didn't Cliff ask him what that was? Why hasn't the media picked up on that? What is this thing that Prime Minister Holness said to Cliff that the ambassador had gone to? I think it had to do with the Shield of the Americas, he said. Okay? No, you don't think. We know that it's a Shield of the Americas. The thing is, it is done in such a way, you see, there are different tiers. And for those who are watching online, you're getting much more information than I'm saying, because we have the graphics up, right? While we're talking, Peter has the graphics up. So you're getting, there's much more information there. We do not ramp around here about the Shield of the Americas. It is what is driving the hemispheric control that we're seeing here. 4 layers of hemispheric control. Go back to Carrie Lake. The Monroe Doctrine, the Plan Colombia, 1999 to present. Monroe Doctrine is 1823 to right now. Plan Colombia is 1999 to present. Carsey is 200 and 2008 to present. And the Escudo de las Americas, the Shield of the Americas, is the 2020s to present. Integrated security network. Entire Americas, this includes the Caribbean, Central and South America, North America. Migration control, military access. So that's why we're seeing more warships. Military access, digital systems, intelligence integration, and they're managing the flows, they say, of migration. This is what the Shield of the Americas is about. Managing the flow of migration, drugs, terror in real time, networked digital governance flow. I have much more to say about the Shield of the Americas, and also what is in the document signed, the MOU signed by the Dominican Republic. Remember, as I said before, we cannot understand what Jamaica has signed unless we understand what the Dominican Republic has signed, but also unless we understand the Shield of the Americas. So the MOU, okay, I do have an interview. I have an interview right now, don't I? Yes, I do have an interview, but let me just one sec. Let me just say this quickly, take a break and go to the to Richard. The MOU signed by the Dominican Republic, non-binding memorandum of understanding with the United States to temporarily receive third country nationals deported from the U.S. As of May 12, 2026, this is the report, last reporting that came from, I think it was Reuters or one of them. They were discussing when the first transfer would be. Now, it's a temporary stay for the Dominican Republic. So they say they're receiving up to 30 third country nationals per month. Here in Jamaica, we say 25. That's the first thing that tells you it's a very same MOU. And individuals may remain 7 to 15 days. This is why they are stressing that it is temporary before being returned to their countries of origin. But if the countries of origin don't want them, then they remain in the Dominican Republic. The agreement specifically exclude Haitian nationals, individuals with criminal records, and unaccompanied minors. That is what Jamaica has signed. I put it to you that this is what Jamaica has signed. I don't see America writing a new MOU for Jamaica. The United States, let us talk about quickly, the United States finances the implementation of this. So the money is in it, a whole lot of money in it. A whole lot of money. The country who's taking the third country deportees, getting a lot of money. Jamaica is getting a lot of money. The International Organization for Migration supports the logistics, the temporary accommodation, and the repatriation efforts. By the way, the minister has said that, Minister Chang has said, all this conversation we're hearing about third country nationals going into St. Mary, he says it's not true. I don't know if you have a clip we can play quickly, but I know I do have to take a break. So anyway, let me come back. Unanswered questions that we do not know from the Dominican Republic. They don't tell us where in the Dominican Republic, the people do not know where these deportees will be housed. Same like in Jamaica. But Jamaica is saying it's in St. Mary, the first batch. The minister is saying it is not St. Mary, it is fake news. In Dominican Republic, we do not know if they will be screened if there are persons who are fearing persecution and fleeing, or fearing torture and fleeing, and so that is not known in the Dominican Republic. Also, in the Dominican Republic, the conversation is about the agreement and whether the extent to which this strengthens the relationship with the United States. But above all, the Dominican Republic has said that this MOU that they have signed is within the shield of the Americas. The MOU signed for third country nationals to be deported to the Dominican Republic is done within the context of a shield of the Americas. The entire thing is within the shield of the Americas. So Jamaica has signed the MOU within the shield of the Americas because Jamaica wants to be America's boy in this region, right? Boy in short pants in this region. And so they have signed this. They do not want to be left out. And so they have signed it. But the shield of the Americas is a security military operation that is going to continue the ongoing militarization of Jamaica. And so Jamaica has signed on to the militarization of Jamaica. But beyond that, Jamaica did a few things first. One, removed the ambassador who was in the United States, removed that ambassador from the United States, brought that ambassador to Jamaica. That ambassador ran in the election, won her seat, and put in, as ambassador in the United States, a military man. I told you at the time that there is no reason under the face of a sun for Jamaica to put in a military operative unless it was within the shield of the Americas. Go back to listen to those conversations that I had. I said it had to do with the shield of the Americas. It had to do with the militarization. We said it last week? Chang. Oh, Mr. Chang. No, is it from last week? No, it's from, he said it yesterday. I'm going to, Richard, hold for me, please, because we have a conversation on financial literacy with Richard Mackenzie, Mr. Richard Mackenzie. And I think I have it, Peter, and I think I can send it to you because I know I did save it. So I think I can, okay, yeah. It's from the JLP website. Well, I forgot to everybody website, JLP, PNP, everybody, because it's social media age and they're not necessarily speaking to mainstream media in the way that you think they're speaking to mainstream media. Let me do this and come back. Counter-cartel coalition, and that ties right now into the conversations you're hearing about transnational organized crime and all of that. But at the same time, Jamaica has done something very interesting. Everything is connected. Remember that. Every single thing is connected. Nothing, no separate from nothing. At the same time, what Jamaica has done, if you notice, Mexico and Colombia are in the news for two different things. One, they're connected to a lot of conversations regarding arrest and cocaine find and drug find and all of that. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the tourism industry is making new inroads into Colombia and Mexico. So we have straight flights now from Colombia to Jamaica, straight flights from Mexico to Jamaica. So tourism is ramping up to Colombia, tourism is ramping up to Mexico on the one hand. On the other hand, we have transnational organized crime, and the news is telling us that 3 Colombian nationals have been arrested, 2 Mexicans have been arrested, etc., etc. We know that there's a war between Pax Mexicana and Pax Colombiana. We've been telling you that for the last 2.5 years in Jamaica for control of Jamaica. We have also tied this to the increase, the rise, the massive rise in police killings. We have also tied this. We have also tied this to the migration, right, of so-called scammers from, say, Montego Bay to St. Elizabeth. We have tied this also. What happened, Peter? We have also tied this to. We have tied, and I'm asking Peter what happened because I'm not quite sure if we're still online, on air. Are you hearing me? Let me know if you're hearing me, or if we are on video. I don't even know what's happening. It's 12 minutes after 7 o'clock. You tell me what's happening, Peter, because every time we start tying this conversation, we drop off of everything. If you're listening to, you're hearing me on the 107s, you're hearing me on, maybe you need to go download the IRFM for Androids, because our experiences, every time we touch this particular topic and start going in this direction, everything crash. But I think I'm still on radio, right? I think I'm still on radio. So if you're on the 107s, I think also on the Android apps. I'm not quite sure about the other. But what we want to do when Peter is checking this out is to hear from the Minister Chang. But in the meantime, I want to go also to my very special guest, because we're going to talk about financial literacy, and Richard Mackenzie is standing by patiently for that. But listen, I just want to say again, everything is connected. Every single thing is connected. A three-zone alignment while we try and figure ourselves out. The Bahamas, a more narrow, exclusive club, which is a shield of the Americas. So the broader AC3 includes the Bahamas, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, but the selective shield of the Americas includes Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, and the Dominican Republic. No, not Suriname. Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and the Dominican Republic. And then you have other countries that are not, considered. It's like a school-grown bully kind of situation. You're not in the in-group. If you're in the Shield of the Americas, you're in the in-group. If you're outside of that, then you're boy around here. So Jamaica wants to be in the in-group. Hence, the third country deportation. They've already signed the MOU. But what about people power? All right, let me do this. No, we're taking tell me who we have, because we should be talking now to Richard Mackenzie. And I'm seeing something different on my running order. So is Richard we have there? Okay. All right, so Richard Mackenzie is online. We're going to be talking about financial literacy. Our overall topic this morning is Ready for the Revolution. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. We're remembering Francis Cress Wessling also at this moment. But we're ready for the revolution, financial literacy revolution also. Are you there, Richard? All right, I'm not hearing Richard Mackenzie, but Richard Mackenzie.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Richard Mackenzie is a financial advisor who has worked at various levels of the financial industry for over 25 years. He has a passion for sharing his knowledge and teaching financial literacy with the hope of helping others to work toward financial freedom. He holds a master's degree in business administration and finance from UTech and embraces any opportunity to enhance wellness physically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. And that is quite true. He joins us online, of course, to talk a little bit about financial literacy. Richard, thank you so much for your patience and for joining us this morning. First, does Jamaica, in terms of comparing where Jamaica is in terms of our financial literacy to other countries, whether it's in the Caribbean or US and so on, where are we? How financially literate is the Jamaican population, the masses of the Jamaican people?
Well, I would only be going based on my observation, because I don't have access to actual statistics and so on.
Yes.
But just by it does depend on what proportion of the population that you're thinking, because the ordinary person in the United States may be a little more tuned into financial education because they have to watch things like their credit score and so on to get there.
Yes.
But they fall prey to some of the traps in dealing with financial institutions and people who lend. Just as much as we do, they fall prey to scams just as easily as we do. I think most of the persons who are educated about financial matters are so because of their family being in the financial circles and so on. I don't think it's systemic. I don't think there's a system of educating, just like there's no system of educating us on financial matters.
Yeah, and culture. Let me ask you though, when we say financial literacy, what do we mean?
Yes. All right. So financial literacy covers the whole landscape of it's that process of gathering education, the knowledge, the skills, the practice, so that you can make more informed decisions when it comes on to things involving money. How to spend, how to save, best practices when it comes on to borrowing, protecting your assets. All of that is combined under what I would call financial literacy. Is knowing how to gathering the information you need to make good financial decisions. And that is so important to the present as well as to the future.
And in our particular situation, what are you noticing? Your experience is wide and varied in terms of how we as a people approach all of what you just said. Our attitude to debt, for example, our willingness to know more about how to conduct our financial operations, for want of a better term.
One of the things when it comes down to financial education, the part that we are definitely educated on is the earning part. We always want to earn more. We don't always go about it the right way because but earning, we know we want more money. We always want more money. We want the most money that we can make. We go to universities. We set up businesses. Jamaicans are always doing something to help earning. Sometimes out of necessity for sure, but definitely we're always on earning. But once we get that money, the decisions that we make sometimes, even well into adulthood, the decisions are suspect. I'm putting it kindly.
Yeah, my people say I throw word at them,
Well, I probably stand accused, but I didn't call any names. So
I know.
But yeah. I've seen decisions that I've seen, and people even come to you for advice, and you give them the advice. Morning, yeah. You give them the advice, and even with all the advice that you give, there are just some things that are cultural. There are some things that seem right. There are the influences that you get from social media is a big influence on what people wanting to do to live the lifestyle that they say people living, and people will put themselves into debt. People will believe things that people tell them. People who they've never met. Because protection, not falling for scams, is also a part of financial literacy. And so on the Jamaican landscape, I tell you, people borrow to go to parties. Things like that are things that frustrate me on a daily basis.
Those
in
loans,
dealing with.
And it's interesting because those loans are available.
Oh yes, almost, and not cheaply either, because a lot of the times the institutions that people go to for these types of loans are not irregular commercial banks who, with all the things that could be improved about them, they take some time to assess risk, and the rates tend to be lower. But there are some persons who lend without asking you for too much. And that, we are the people, we like that. Well, I can't take all the documents and all the things. Let's go to the money. All the money I want to say is that I have a work and I have some money left over after I pay done and thing. But that man is taking significantly more risk than the bank is taking, and therefore he's charging you significantly more for those types of loans. And those are the ones that people tend to access to do these frivolous things, to do some of these frivolous things.
Yeah. We've had some experiences in Jamaica with, was it Oland and was it Cash Plus? Was it Cash Plus?
Yes.
And some other,
yes, we have. And more.
And more.
They haven't quite gotten to the popularity level of those two.
Right.
But yeah, we still fall for them after so many years of being educated on what happens when something seems too good to be true. Even just recently in the news, there've been two of these that I see people literally come in and for go to financial institutions to withdraw the money to send to these things because they tell them there was one involving JPS. JPS had to put out a statement to say that they're not involved in that. I think there was one about the opposition leader too. That had to be denied that he had to come. I don't remember if it was him or his publicity team came out and said that, no such thing. But putting down a small amount of money for a period of time and then ending up with $1 million a month, $500,000 a month for some period, that is lack of financial literacy. That is not understanding, how would somebody be able to make enough money to give you that amount of money over that period of time? I mean, what could happen? What could they possibly be doing? And just that putting together that it has to make sense for it to be a real opportunity.
And it's not partner. So even with a partner, you're not going to get back more than you put in. I mean, right.
People understand that. The only error that I see that people make with partner is, the trust issue. I mean, we've known people who gone and run off with people's partner.
Yes.
And that is a little quirk in the system. But partner is not bad financial, it's not bad financial practice.
Yes.
With the exception of choosing with whom you enter, you enter the partner.
Well,
it has helped a lot of Jamaicans to save.
I know. Yes, I put my daughter in a partner, right? And
yes.
After the partner done, well, she never want no first draw because I explained it to her that, if you get the first draw, they say, what? But when she gets her draw, she said to me, but this don't make no sense. So I asked her, what do you mean by it don't make any sense? She said, but then I could have saved this. I could have, I could put this down, the same amount of money per month, I'm going to have the same amount of money. So, but this is
what you should do is challenge her to do it.
Which is what I have done, right? This is exactly what I have done. But I'm saying this is a thinking that you can explain to the child who's asking you this. But then you have adults, as you said before, who are making decisions concerning their lives financially, but they're going into institutions or into places where you're getting a massive amount of money, with little bit of document, not a lot of questions asked, and then you find yourself on the outside. How prevalent is that in Jamaica? Do you know, in terms of why is this?
It's very prevalent, and let me tell you, I've seen some very sad. Civil servants, male civil servants particularly. I don't want to call out any particular service, but I don't know. And when you talk to persons who have gone into these situations after being rescued, sometimes when you do a plan and you do a debt consolidation, and what you do is you help them to free. Okay, so doing this now, you free up more cash for yourself, because what tends to happen is that when you look at some of those persons' pay slips, they have nothing going home with, and so they constantly have to borrow. So it becomes a cycle. There's no new money coming from outside of the cycle to alleviate the debt. So the money that you're paying is money that should have been doing something practical. So now that you can't do that thing, you borrow to do that practical thing, and it just continues to go around until they'll not give you any more. But they don't care if you don't go home with enough money to feed a family. they are getting their payment, and most times it's deducted from your salary. So unless you leave the job, and even if you leave the job, most times you have a guarantor, and that guarantor now becomes the person who, if that person has a salary, that salary is docked as well, and that payment has to be made.
Do we have?
It is very prevalent. It is very prevalent. Very, very prevalent.
Do we have debtors' prisons? I know I had this conversation with you of air. Do we have debtors' prisons as far as you know in Jamaica? Do we have a situation where people can still go to prison or go to jail if they owe money, whether to these institutions? Right.
So I'm not an attorney. Let me just say that first of all. Yes. And debtors' prisons, I think, were a product of the Debtors Act from in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. Now, in that time, you could go to prison for periods of like 6 months, maybe a year, if you don't pay a debt that has been proven, and even after you go to prison, that doesn't erase the debt. So you come back out, you still owe the money, mm-hmm. and you could be sent to prison again. In practice nowadays, though, you can't really go to prison for money that you owe. If you owe money,
even if you default?
The person. I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
No, when you can't go in front, because I know somebody who's been to court in front of a judge, and because she defaulted on a payment to one of these loan sharks that set up, as looking like bank, but they're really loan sharks.
Right. Understood. So what can happen though is that you can go to court. You can be sued for the money, and you can have a court order you to make those payments. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't follow the court order, then that can become something that you can go to jail for, but not because of the original debt itself. And even then, you go to jail if the court is of the opinion that you can pay and you are not paying.
Okay, the last story, I just Googled something here and found that one of the last stories we're seeing in the Observer was from 2020, where it says the Colonial Debtors Act of 1872, as you were saying, still allowed you straight into jail, but that you can be thrown into jail.
I'm trying to remember if that's the story. If you read further on, then they give you more detail.
Okay.
In that story that says that they went to court and the judgment and
some early in the morning.
We're having a disturbance, right? And once again, this is happening almost every Sunday. So I do apologize, Richard. I'm not quite sure what is causing it. It says, Richard, I hear you. It says, according to Section 2 of the Debtors Act, this is a story, I think, any court having civil jurisdiction may commit to prison with or without hard labor for a term not exceeding 6 weeks or until payment of any debt or installment of any debt due from him in pursuance of any order of judgment or any other competent court. So time spent in debtor's jail, however, does not mean a write-off of the money owed. This is very interesting. I do not understand it because...
I think that sounds like a description of the original act as practice.
Right. But bottom line is, from your knowledge, is that so debtors' prisons don't necessarily exist, but what exists is that if you default on your payment and you're taken to court, the judge has the ability to say, and you're not a lawyer, to say,
right, yeah.
And this is my experience.
Right. So having disobeyed the court, then
yeah.
Right. If you are found to be able to make the payment, and you're choosing not to. That is my understanding of how the law is practiced.
Let me ask our listeners to text in and let us know if what's your own experience, and if you know anybody who has had that experience of going into jail or going to prison for any amount of time, stemming from having owed money, going to court, and you're disobeying the court. Let me take a quick break, Richard. It's a series. Please go and watch it. We're ready for the revolution either way. Not the movie kind, but the revolution. Now we're talking about a financial revolution. So we have more or less identified one of the likely debt traps that we can fall into, which is loan sharks. Which some of these loan sharks are set up as looking like and behaving like banks, but they're not. And as Richard is saying, if it's too good to be true, if it sounds and look too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So what are the other debt?
That's a good rule of thumb.
Yes. What are the other more common debt traps that we can fall into without being aware of what we're doing until we're literally in it?
I don't want to describe it as a debt trap per se. But you can get into debt if, for example, you get a credit card without understanding exactly how to use it or how it works. And that is something that is more accessible. You access these from regular commercial banks, and so there's no perception of somebody trying to get one up on you or trying to deceive you. However, it's not deception, but the trap that you can get into is not realizing how these things work. For example, some people think that a credit card is like a term loan. Once you have your credit established, and once you have a certain amount of purchases on that card, all you need to do is just make some payments on it until it is retired. They don't understand, for example, that there's an interest that is assessed every credit card period. There are annual fees. There are late payment fees, and so on. And so treating a credit card debt like a term loan, where you make your monthly payments and expecting that it will be retired in an orderly manner, is a trap that a lot of people get into. And also, getting into that trap, when you find out what is required to get you out of that debt, that in itself can get you into a bigger trap, because now you have to use more of your disposable income in order to retire the debt that you built up.
All right,
because you're using more of your
break it down first, Richard, in terms of what it is not, because you're saying people think it is, they treat it like a term loan, but it is not. But if you break that down first some more in the layman's language, that our listeners understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay,
let's take a simple example. You get a credit card with $100,000 limit. All right, that allows you to spend without going over your limit up to $100,000 per month. So let me start by saying what should happen. What should happen is that when you get your credit card bill, which is usually on a 25-day cycle, and then you get some time to pay, you should settle all of that debt when that time comes. In other words, you shouldn't be spending on your card for that month more than you can settle at the end of the month in an ideal situation. The credit card company, however, has a minimum payment that you can make. And some people think that by making that minimum payment, it means that interest is not going to be assessed on the card, and that is not true. Once you have not settled the entire balance for that month, you are charged interest on the entire balance for that month. So even if you paid $40,000 of the 100 that you ran up, you're still going to be charged interest on the $100,000. Right?
Yeah.
So that is something that a lot of persons don't understand, and that each subsequent purchase adds to the balance. So let's say the following month you pay the $40,000, so now you owe $60,000 plus the interest. So it's not that you just owe $60,000 the next month. You owe $60,000 plus the interest, and the interest on credit cards is not a regular loan interest. There's no security in most cases, and so the interest rate tends to be, for example, right now, it would not be surprising to me that credit card interest is like 49% per annum.
Wow. Yeah.
I saw a concessionary rate that the bank was offering somebody because of how well they're making the payments, and that was 29%.
Wow.
And that was because of how well you're paying.
Wow. So that, you are, I know people are encouraged to pay and this is a conversation that's passed down among people, pay your minimum. But you're saying this is where you're going way off. Pay your balance.
Yes.
Pay your balance.
Yes, pay your balance. Because paying that minimum pretty much just means that you will not be seen as delinquent. You're not going to be delinquent. Because you've made that payment. However, it will not save you from being charged interest on the subsequent credit card period. You will be charged.
And that, of course, is one, I think, must be one of the main, you say it's not a trap, but I'm calling it a trap, the credit card trap. Because if you do not understand how it works, you're already, and you're not paying your balance. You're already in that trap, not knowing that.
I really believe that when there needs to be a little information session when you're giving somebody a credit card. You really shouldn't just give somebody a credit card and then say, go and spend.
Yes.
You really should try and tell them. You need to tell them when their credit card, what the run date is. The run date can be, people strategize with the run date. If you have a purchase to make a couple of days before the credit card runs, if you can postpone it to another period, you delay that, give yourself some more time to make the payment. There are things that you can do. I think that there should be a little information session with persons when they get their credit card. And when I do any kind of credit counseling, I don't get the impression that persons who got credit cards were informed or they really have a very short memory. But some of the things that you're pointing out to them, they've never heard that. And it's not that people are spendthrifts. And I know people spend with good intentions. People spend,
Yes.
They want to do something special for somebody. They spend, and that in itself, that in itself is something that you have to watch. Because when you have this purchasing power, then the need for discipline really becomes even more important. Because without the credit card, you would perhaps have started saving, before to be able to do this thing. Now you do it. And had you saved, it would cost you exactly that amount of money. But when you put it on your credit card, what happens is that the likelihood that you would have to pay some additional monies, if you're unable to pay for it in that month, is very real. So that thing that would have cost you X amount now cost you X plus whatever interest you have to incur until the credit card is paid off. So it's a very serious decision to get a credit card. It really involves discipline, and you really don't need a lot of information in order to handle it properly. And people do get into credit card debt. A lot of times, a lot of the people are not delinquent, but they're struggling to make the payments. They're making the payments at the expense of monies that they should be putting towards their financial future. Monies that should be saved, money that should be invested, are going towards making payments on payday loans and on credit card.
Let us talk about that. How can we save money? And talk about money that should be saved, money that should be invested. How can we save money for unexpected expenses on our income, or just generally to invest? So we're looking at two different things there.
Yes. All right. So, clearly it has to be saved first before you can invest it. What when we're doing advisory services to investors, potential investors, we recommend that you pay yourself first. What that means is that I think it's Warren Buffett who said, "Don't save what you have after spending." He says, "Spend what you have after saving." So don't save what you have after spending, but spend what you have after saving. So saving should be the priority, because really and truly, when you look at it, with the monies that you use for your wants and needs, shelter, food, and so on and so forth, those things are pretty much gone. You spent them. What you have for the future is what you saved. And you can't invest what you don't save. You can't consume in the future what you haven't saved. And so ideally what you should be doing is saving 10 to 20% of your income for future use. The emergency fund, I think that's what you just spoke about. The emergency fund is what we ask you to build up when you're investing, because let me define that. Emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. That brings into focus another aspect of financial education, which we'll get to, I'm sure, budgeting. But you need to know, what does it cost me to live monthly? If I were to, whether you lose your job or not, but you know what you spend your money on. What does it cost me to live? And then save 3 to 6 times that over time, over time. And that, what that does is it gives you the freedom to invest, because you know that, okay, if something comes up out of the blue, somebody running into my bumper and I need to fix now, can't wait an insurance company. I can go into my thing, fix that until the insurance company gets ready to give me that money back. Or you have a tire blowout on the road. You need to know that you can find that very easily.
Yes.
What happens sometimes is that people go into investments without thinking about that. And you have an investment, it's doing well, you want to keep it for the long term, but an emergency comes. And when you look around, you don't have any choice apart from to liquidate something that is doing well for you. So emergency, and I mean, even then, you can lose your job. You have a long-term investment. You need to know that you have the monies that you can pay your expenses while you look for another job, without having to break down what you have. Let me give you an example. Jamaica, for example, is a stock that's doing very well now on the stock market. So let's say you invested in that and you're watching it climb and you have expectation that it's going to go even higher, and you see it's paying you good dividends and so on, and you don't have an emergency fund, something happens. Now you are going to be in a situation where you're injured twice. One is that first injury that you want to cure by getting some more money, and also having to sell an asset that is doing well. So emergency funds are indispensable when you're talking about investing.
Right. I'm wondering about why we don't. And hang on, let me take a quick break. Financial literacy this morning. We are aware that a lot of our people are in serious debt. And we are aware that there's a lot of our people are struggling in serious ways in this global financial economy, much less our local financial economy here on the island. So, if you have questions, shoot them to me. Let me know what you're thinking. But Richard, I'm wondering, why is it that when we were going to school, we had maybe somebody coming in like from Jamaica National or somewhere, and I can't remember where else, but somebody would come in with a book and Victoria Mutual or somebody, and you start saving. So, and this is like from infant school.
Yes.
You remember those days? And it's like from infant school. Is that still happening? Because I thought that was a good idea back in the day. I don't know what's happening, but we're getting this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was interrupted.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Right,
do you know
I remember
if that is still happening?
VM, I think. We had a little card thing that you'd save and they'd write on the card and keep a running total.
Right.
And so on.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. Is it that the institutions that used to do it don't no longer see the value of it? But the truth of the matter is that when it comes down to financial literacy at that age, it has to be the responsibility of the either the institution or the government, the Ministry of Education, because the benefits of having a financially educated population redound to the society in general. The rate at which wealth is built, the rate at which savings, the success rate of new businesses and so on. All of those things can be vastly improved by just giving better information to children. Let me just say that there are some institutions. I say that Bank of Jamaica has been doing some work with regard to that. They've launched Money Quest, which is a gamified approach to financial literacy aimed at children like in grades 4 to grade 6. Where it covers things like saving and how to spend wisely and a little bit of investing. So some effort is being. I don't know how widespread. I think they've put some incentives on it where a child can win up to $200,000, a school can win up to $500,000. It was just launched at the end of May. So I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it in practice yet. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Me too.
But educating our children, and so as parents, we also need to take responsibility for that. But of course, we as parents have to learn first.
That's right.
Ourselves.
That's right.
Yes.
So let's just talk about budgeting.
And of course, because we didn't get that education, we are just as educated as we can. The things that we can glean from our day-to-day lives. Because I don't know that there's any one thing locally that is giving that. But we have so much information available to us now on the internet. So if you're really interested, you can go and learn some of these things.
True.
You can go and learn about budgeting. You can go and learn
there.
about stocks and bonds, and you
Yeah.
can learn about how to start a business. Things like that. There are lots of resources, but the way that we have to work for this money sometimes leave us very little time
to go check. And that's why we're happy that you're here this morning. So let us talk about budgeting. And I want you to come back very shortly after this to talk about stocks and bonds and investing and so on. But let's talk about budgeting. How is there a standard way to do that? Is there a best practice, a better way to do it? And what's budgeting, by the way?
Should I say best practice? Okay. So let me start off by saying that in the United States, they have a kind of like a rule of thumb that you can use to, this is not budgeting, but kind of assess where you really need to be. And so they say that 50% of your income should be spent on needs, food, shelter, these things.
Yes.
30% on wants, like eating out, getting your nails done, your hair, and things like that. I know some people still put that under the needs category.
Yeah, of course.
But and 20% should be saved.
20%.
So that is kind of like a something that you can use to something that you can use to just 1 second, Kabu. I'm sorry.
Because
something that you can use to guide your budgeting practice.
Yeah.
But budgeting starts off with income. Total your total income, whether it is from your salary, whether it's from your dividends, your bonds. You need to first of all make a note of what it is that comes in. And watch yourself for a while. It might be a little tedious watching yourself, making notes to say what it is that you spend money on. But there are some things that are not up for debate. You know those things. You know what your rent is. You know what your mortgage is. You know what your car insurance is. But it gets fuzzy when it comes down to, okay, so how much do I spend on food? And then food becomes what I buy for groceries, what I buy for lunch, what I do when I'm on the road, and so forth. So all of this, there are things that are in that fuzzy category. So that's why I'm saying, watch yourself, make notes, over a period of time to see what it is, what those figures are. Put that into your budget, and then you go through a process now of, okay, what can I save? What can I save? What can I save money on? Where can I spend less? Maybe sometimes you do a budget and you realize you need to spend more in another area. But overall, what you do is you get an idea of what I make and what I spend this money on. Right. At the end of the day, what that tells you is how much can I save, or what more do I need to do? Because it's a miracle that I'm actually surviving based on this. I've gone through budgets. Some of them still stand out after 10, 15 years. I remember doing budgets where, like, at the end of the day, I was in so much negative. Like, I'm wondering, how is this fellow here surviving? And guess what? A lot of the spending that he did was charitable. So he was a part-time. One guy I remember was a part-time teacher. His mother was elderly. He was the person taking care of his mother, and he also helped out a young lady whose mother was unemployed. So he would sometimes give her lunch money and that sort of thing. And this, when I say he was a teacher's assistant at the time, he also was responsible for one of the political parties, the youth arm of one of the political parties in his area. Everything free, so he had to buy the phone card to coordinate everybody. He had to get the area ready, and he did as a favor, decorating sometimes like for stores in the area. And at the end of the day, doing this guy's budget, when I say he was in deficit, Kabu, I mean, I was stunned that this guy was actually alive, like properly dressed. And things, because we didn't get money for clothes because it was disastrous. But what we're able to do is to, first of all, identify the deficit. And we're able to say, okay, all right, I couldn't tell this man not to do his charitable things because, I was really very proud of him for that. But what we found out is that he needed to lean more on his organization to pick up more of those expenses. That was the first thing. You can't be broke and you still having to buy phone card to call everybody to remind them about meetings and to coordinate this and that and the other. No, you work for you're representing an organization for free. The least I can do is pick up some of the expenses. But two other things, and like you're doing these decorations for free. Why not charge a small thing for them? And also, where you guys meet, you have full access to that, and you have teaching skills. Try to do some evening classes, do something like that. So this is what can happen coming out of a budget conversation. But it is extremely important as a launching pad for the rest of your financial life. There's no way that you're going to buck up on. You're going to get financially successful by buck up. You have to start with that, and you can plan from a budget. You can plan. You can look forward because you know how much money you have to go forward. So you can say to yourself, all right, I have this money. I'm going to put this in my emergency, and then this I'm going to use to buy X, Y, or Z. Whatever the outcome of your financial conversation is. But budgeting definitely is that launching pad.
But let us talk about rent as opposed to mortgage. Is it better to rent or to buy? But also, within that budgeting conversation, where does that fall? Because I hear 50% to take care of your living expenses. That includes rent?
Yes. 50% on your needs. That includes rent, for sure.
That includes rent.
That it does.
In a place where rent is so high.
Yes.
But
so the indication is that you need to earn more. Sometimes, especially if you're in a couple, of course your portion of the rent is what you're looking at. But if it's you alone, then of course you either at the end of the conversation, I'm sure that what will come out is that we either need to do something about the income, or you need to try and find out if you can't survive in a place that charges you less rent. And of course, the reality of what it is that you want to accomplish. So coming out of the budget conversation also are plans, what it is that you want to achieve. A guy who is renting might say he wants a mortgage within X number of years. And when you look at what he wants, the down payment towards getting that mortgage is a certain amount of money. And therefore, you have to find that out of what you're earning to do it. So if you have to sacrifice, if you want to call it that, by living in a less expensive place, so that eventually you can own your own place, then that is something that can come out of a budget conversation as well. But there is no getting around it. If you can't save it, then you can't spend it later on.
How much of that 50% should be rent, ideally?
It's hard to say. Everybody's 50% is different. But yeah, I've never actually looked at that. How much of that 50% should be rent? But I would say maybe half. Maybe half of that 50% is rent.
Which country are we talking about? I did that deliberately.
We're talking about Jamaica.
All right, so let's just look at teachers.
I know that you're talking about these $120,000 a month places.
No, because I'm looking at teaching, nursing, civil service, right?
Yes.
The bulk of the disappeared middle class that are kind of just barely surviving, eking out a survival. Right. We're talking about the health sector, the education sector, and all the way, and going to security guards and people who are working at radio stations. Yes.
All right. So if you take home $400,000 a month, that means what I'm saying would mean $100,000 rent. So because half of your 50% is quarter. So I'm saying quarter of your salary is what you'd be. Quarter of your take home is what you'd be. But when you look at it too, for a person who wants to own a home, mortgage payments. If you look at what places are being sold for nowadays, mortgage payments are probably going to run you more than what your rent is running. So you have to be prepared for that eventuality as well. And so this is also why it's good to budget, because then you and also to look at what you want, because the reality of where you are comes at you pretty quickly. When you look at the marketplace, what is there, what you're earning, what you'll be required to do to accomplish it. It comes out of the budgeting conversation. and it makes things pretty real. But as I said before, the conversation will bring you to that place where you have to decide.
Yeah.
How do you move forward? Am I going to be cutting my expenses? Am I going to be trying to earn more money? Exactly how am I going to do this? But you can't, it's not going to happen by buck up. You have to make some hard decisions sometimes in order to get where you want to get to.
Let me take a quick break, Richard. I'll be right back. Be financially secure even if they're not working a whole lot of money.
Okay, so let's define financial security. Financial security means, to me, that you can pretty much provide for yourself the things that you need, whether you work or not. But if your security is dependent on your job, then you are as secure as your job is. So let us start with that. How can I be secure that if I continue to work the job that I'm working, I can feel secure? And that's very difficult. When I say it's very difficult, sorry, what I mean is you can feel secure that if things continue the way they continue, that you can, for the foreseeable future, keep up the lifestyle. But there are always emergencies. People get ill. Natural disasters happen. People that you care about get into problems that you may have to help with. And so that level of security is not easy to achieve. But let us say you're talking just about you being able to provide for yourself. Then of course we get back to having saving. We go back to having investments. Health insurance is definitely a critical part of feeling secure. And also, health insurance and also pension. A pension is a good idea because you won't always be working. Not everybody has a business that will go into perpetuity. But having a pension gives you some peace of mind that when you're no longer able or want to work, that there will be a steady stream of income still coming in. Because as a financial advisor, what I see a lot of times is that having a certain amount of money coming in on a regular basis sometimes is even more important, more valuable than having a lump sum of money sitting down somewhere. Especially if that lump sum of money is not being used to generate an income.
There's so many organizations and so many companies and so many places that do not pay pensions. How do people get around that? Because your company don't pay pension. You're working in a home as a domestic helper. You're working at the call centers where and there's also another situation in Jamaica that has taken off, which is the contract worker. You have a contract for 1 year or maybe 2 years at the most. Nothing is paid out of that.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, and it has to be said that the national insurance scheme is one contribution that you can make, that you can expect to get something from. I haven't seen any of them that looks anywhere near adequate. Right. So of course you have to do something further. Right. And thankfully in Jamaica, you can now do a private pension. You can approach a financial institution that offers it. And once you are between the ages of 18 and 69, you can contribute to a pension for yourself. Of course, I recommend doing so with the help of a financial advisor, because you are limited to a maximum of 20% of your gross salary within a year. That's the maximum that you can contribute. So depending on how early or how late you start, you may also want to do what is called pension supplementation. That is where you invest in longer term assets most times that can give you some tax-free benefits. So most investments in stocks and real estate are not subject to tax, because we as of now don't have capital gains. We don't tax capital gains on stocks and or real estate in funds, right? So those are the. But also there are some investments that after 5 years, whatever you invested after 5 years, up to $1 million per year, you can get whatever you've earned on that tax free. So that's why I'm saying have the conversation through a financial advisor.
How important is it to do this? I want to underscore this. I want you to take a minute to kind of underscore this, because I know that there's a situation on the island where I won't say majority, but a lot of our workers now, people in the workforce, are on contract. This is where Jamaica is now. It's contract work. It's a 1 year, 2 year, and a lot of things aren't taken care of, like those who are permanent workers. And then on top of that, there are many companies where pension no pay. as we say in Jamaica.
Sure.
So, but how important?
and I must say that a lot of Jamaicans who are now living off that pension would not have that pension had they not worked with the employer that they work with. And so it was very limited then. And sometimes, I've seen people talk about their parents, but they don't understand that the environment that their parents existed in is a completely different environment than we have now. There was no walking into a financial institution and saying you want to set up a private pension. Those are recent things in the Jamaican context. But it's pretty simple. I mean, it's as easy as setting up a saving account. Yeah.
But Richard,
in fact, it might even be easier. When I say that, what I mean is that you have to go through the same know your client thing, but it once you set it, most of the times you can set it and forget it, especially if your employer is cooperating and doing the deductions for you.
Yeah.
So some employers even will match some aspects of your deduction. Some employers don't, but they will facilitate the deduction. And the thing is, once an employer is satisfied that what the deduction is going towards a pension, they should deduct that from your salary before they charge you any income taxes.
I want you to talk to some of our young people, because I could be wrong on this. I'm no expert myself, but there's a situation for with our young people who are graduating from universities and colleges and so on. It seems to me as if one of the first decisions that our young people are making is that they are going directly to buying a car first. And this is even without this conversation that we're having, like how do you invest, or you look to save, or you look to retirement, even though you just start work. I mean, what your future, if you will. So, what is the best thing for them to do? If from your perspective, is this a good way to go? Or you go car first because you're taking a loan to buy a car, but you haven't done anything else. So it's the first thing.
So let me just say that when you're doing financial education, personal finances. One of the important things to do is to especially when it comes down to how you allocate that portion of your money that is at your disposal, is to decide what is an asset and what is not. And you really should be buying more assets with your funds than liabilities. I put liabilities in quotation.
Yes.
Because a car is not an asset if what you're doing with it is just jolly riding with it. A car can be an asset if it is something that is pertinent to your job. You're not earning this money unless you have a car, and so you can consider it an asset in that regard. But something that is primarily for joyriding, for just going from point A to point B without adding anything, is not an asset, because it depreciates in value and it costs you money, and it doesn't generate any money.
And you're not buying in cash.
Right. Yep. A man who buys a car and puts it on the road and earns an income from it, you could consider it an asset in that regard. So from the point of view of somebody who has just left school, there are many people who have just left school and can easily afford a motor car, as well as do other things, because of the kind of job that they have. But each person has to assess his own situation and make a decision as to whether a motor vehicle is essential, or even the type of motor vehicle, because a lot of the times it's trying to portray a lifestyle that might be ahead of where you really are, but you want to give an impression. Don't buy the vehicle because you want to give an impression that you are that you're better off. Try to think as practically as you can. So I'm not going to discourage persons from purchasing motor vehicles, but there's a smart way to do it, and of course there's a way that is not so smart.
If you have to make a decision
but in deciding on doing that, if you the decision to start a pension should be much more important than a decision to buy a car. You know what I mean? And why I would talk to persons who are just leaving university is because of the outlay that will be required to have a good retirement if you start when you're just leaving, rather than waiting until you've been working 10, 15 years to start planning for retirement. And of course, you know what they call the is it the ninth wonder of the world? What is compounding? One of those. but the earlier you start, the less of an outlay you need to have in order to retire comfortably. So somebody who started at 25 is definitely in a they've had a 10-year start on somebody who started when they were 35, and so on and so forth. So the retirement saving is like that, because it's not just that you're putting down the money and then you're going to get back what you put. It's not a part now. When you're in a pension fund, the funds are invested and you get a return on your money. And so the earlier you start, the more the longer the funds are invested, and therefore the more money you make at the end of the day. Because what you want is that when you are retired, you can live as comfortably or even more comfortably than when you were employed.
So what about when you buy land or a house, or at what point do you begin to consider this?
Well,
to do this?
Yeah, land, especially in Jamaica, land. I'm gonna go with that. Land is definitely an asset in the sense that what determines value is demand and supply, and general land isn't something that you make more of. So the supply is constrained and the demand is constantly increasing. So so land is an asset, right? But it's not very liquid. In other words, if you want liquidity, you're going to need to borrow against it or sell it. But that in itself is not a bad thing. We spoke about debt, and I actually wanted to circle back to the fact that debt is not always bad.
All right, let me take this break and come to that, because this is going to be our final 15 minutes, and we're talking about financial literacy. We're learning a whole lot this morning, and I hope that it's helpful to you. Richard, thanks for staying with us. In the final segment, I was just reflecting. I know we want to talk quickly a little bit more about land and so on, but I was just reflecting on something you said earlier, and I thought I'd just kind of double back to this, which is to focus on the just within the last segment, contract workers. I'm asking you for your personal opinion on this. Isn't this the most unfair thing that has happened to the labor market, or the labor force, or labor industry, if you will, in Jamaica? Isn't it really terrible? What do you think? I'm
not a fan. I don't know I'm not a fan, and I actually haven't been able to hear an argument as to why the benefit to the employer outweighs the disadvantage to the employed person. I can't see why something like that is not regularized. Maybe it's my lack of understanding of how it goes, of what it all entails. But I don't see why somebody who's a professional isn't given a permanent position. In this, it can't be because taxes are deducted in the same way, from what I understand. it's just that things like pension and so on are not provided. And sometimes what happens is, even when you're trying to sorry, to get ahead in life, it can be a sort of a stumbling block, because you approach a financial institution and they're going to ask you, are you employed full time or on contract? And they consider you a bigger risk if you are employed on contract. And sometimes you have to go through a lot to prove that, yes, I'm on contract and I've been on contract for 3-4 years. And yes, the likelihood is that I will be on contract, but there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee.
And so a financial institution does consider you a higher risk, even though you're a professional and even though the likelihood is that you'll be there, but that can't be taken for granted. You know what I mean?
And I understand. I'm hearing that some.
I'd love to.
I hear some don't even pay NHT. That a lot of them don't pay taxes NHT. So that's another thing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a conversation that I think a wider conversation we need to have. But let's in the final.
So what they're saying is that you must make that return yourself. So you need to file your individual taxes.
Right, that's my understanding.
They need to build in that additional expense of getting an accountant and so on.
I think the Ministry of Labour, the government has to intervene in this particular situation. I know the unions have been talking about it, but we haven't seen any change on it. But the unions are political. They'll talk about it.
But there are certain high-ranking people in government who are employed on contract.
Look at I know. Well, but we want to see for them contract.
So I don't expect them to be leading the charge.
No, that's true. That's true. All right, listen. So let us wrap this up now. And we can wrap this up with focusing on land also, owning land, owning a home, until we talk again, which is to take us into the next segment, the next discussion we're going to have, which is about investing, stocks and bonds and so on.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So, land ownership is one of the most popular ways towards building wealth.
Yeah.
It's incalculable how much land increases in value in some places. I always look at. You remember when we used to drive through Falmouth? When it was near the waterfront.
Yes.
And there was always land. There was always land behind there.
True.
You know what I mean?
True. Yes.
There was always land that we couldn't see and we couldn't. And then the decision was taken to build a bypass of Falmouth and thing. And so now those lands that we never even used to see became front page land.
Right.
And the way that the value of those lands. Yes. I'm sure is something that the persons who own them could not have envisioned.
That's true.
And that is the power of land. You could be sitting on it for years and thinking it's worthless. And just one decision. And the highway that is going to be highway, is that right? Yeah, highway from Discovery Bay to Drax Hall is going to give that opportunity to many more people who have lands on the interior.
Yes.
And then even a development comes. It's not necessarily near you, but the highway is now there, and people in there. If you're from St. Anne, like Beachertown, Claremont, and those places. No, these are places where people are going to start demanding money, because you can live in Kingston. And somebody from Money can leave the house the same time as you and get to New Kingston before you know. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because of just how the traffic is set up and because of the ease of jumping on the highway and so on. So, so those are lands that are going to be have already increased in value and will continue to increase in value because of just how near they are to access points and so on and major developments. Yes. And as land continues to increase in value in Kingston, it's going to, of course, spill over into the adjoining communities. People are going to choose to live there and work. So land is definitely a good way of passing and of passing down wealth from generation to generation. I see a lot of people build on like family lands and squat and so on. And the danger in that is that you don't own those places. And so you participate in making those places more valuable, but then you don't stand to gain from the value of that. I'm not saying that you have a choice, no, but you should be aware, that you don't put too much of your hard-earned money into these places where you won't be able to pass on that value to your children. You won't be able to borrow against it. You won't be able to do anything with it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about squatting from another perspective another time. I see you just straight in with this a while ago. But the discussion must be hard because I see Bobby Montague come out and talk about squatting on crown lands and all of that. So that is a big comment. I don't touch it, but I intend to touch it. Listen, Richard, I have a text here. Akeem says, loving the discussion, but realistically, it is extremely very, capital letters, difficult in this economic dispensation. Salary barely match expenses. How do we navigate those? And the government won't intervene. I think he's talking now about the contract worker thing. So that's one response.
Well, if I can't speak much to the contract worker, but I can speak to the attitude. So that is one of the things that has to be the leading thing. No matter where you are on the earning cycle, financial education cycle, the attitude that you bring to the table must be a positive one. You mustn't say, like people say, no, them something for rich people, or we will never get to that. I mean, start at the beginning.
Yes.
Many institutions right now. Well, I know the institution I work at. You can book a 45-minute session and have a free financial discussion where you can start off with, I need help with my budget. Just like if something wrong with you would go to your doctor, you'd do a diagnosis, have a conversation. Well, with a good doctor.
I'm tempted to say
you can do that. You have to start there because sometimes you don't know.
Full stop.
And the example I gave of that young man.
Yes.
What I liked about him is that we moved temporarily into the area that he was. We weren't there for long.
Yes.
But he did just look at his situation and said, no, he came in and said, listen, I need to look at my situation and say, he had the attitude like, I don't think this is my destination, I can do better, but I need the help. I need to have somebody help me look at it. And so that is where you have to start first.
Yes.
If you start off with it's never going to happen, then it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen because the mind, whatever you think, that's what you're going to create. That's what you're going to bring into being.
Exactly.
Richard, I'm going to give you a final word. Thank you so much. A final word as we look forward to the next conversation, which is going to be about stocks and bonds. So if you can kind of just prepare our minds for that.
I want to thank you for giving the opportunity to talk about financial education.
You.
I don't even think we scratch the surface.
I know.
But
that's why it's a series.
There's much more to it. But what I would like your listeners, Kabu, to advocate for at every opportunity is the financial education of our youth.
Yes.
We never had these distractions when we were growing up, and they are going to be in a world with much more, opportunities to make bad decisions. I don't know. They are going to be. There are going to be many more opportunities. They have already started.
Oh yes.
You have to know yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to know what your values are. You have to know who you want to be, because people will take your money away, and the institutions are not getting any more moral. They're not getting any less motivated to do things to get your money. And you have to find out how to protect it. It is your future. But you getting an education and educating your children, but advocate where you can for the government, the schools, to put it into their curriculum. It needs to be in the curriculum.
Yes.
It needs to be taught how to save, the value of money, what money is for, the acquiring assets. What is an asset? What is a liability? Good spending practices. All of that needs to be in. So
when you come back next time, we're looking at all of those. Make a note, Peter. These are some of the stuff we're going to look at when you come back, and I hope that you come back in short order. We're getting so many responses from our listeners.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah. And listen, I can tell you this just from the responses coming into us, that people are really happy this morning, our listeners, that we went here and that we have you on talking about financial literacy. Overwhelming response. I just tell you in real time. This is what we're getting.
Yes. I really am happy that it's resonating.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much, Richard. As usual, really a pleasure having you.
It has been my pleasure being on the program and getting to talk to you again, Kabu. That is always a pleasure.
Yes, remember, very soon, hopefully.
Yes, all right.
Yeah, man, give thanks. All right, Richard McKenzie. And once again, Richard McKenzie is a financial advisor who has worked at various levels of the financial industry for over 25 years. He has a passion for sharing his knowledge and teaching financial literacy with the hope of helping others work towards financial freedom. He holds a master's degree in business administration and finance from UTech and embraces an opportunity to enhance wellness physically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. I hope that we were able to help a little bit this morning. This is something that we have been talking about in this space. It's good to have someone who knows the system, understands finance, who can come in and help us, guide us, because especially now more than ever, we need this kind of guidance. Let me tell you quickly that, there's something I need to tell you about. Because we said earlier that we are on the eve of the 85th solar return of Kwame Ture, Black freedom fighter, Pan-Africanist, born June 29, 1941. His timeless echoes of Black power still inspiring us to continue to struggle for Black liberation and Africa unity. We showed you the book. The program this morning, the entire program this morning is entitled Ready for the Revolution. You don't have to bring it closer, we're good, man. Ready for the Revolution. I'm Stokely Carmichael. All right. So, iNation is ensuring that we don't forget. And so, Inner City Dub, Roots Rockers Reggae Dub Session, recalling Kwame, Stokely Carmichael Ture. And he doesn't want to be called Stokely Carmichael anymore. All right. Amlak, Red Square, Big Youth, Teller Dawkins, Reasoning by David Muhammad, DJ Architect, Monday, June 29, 2026, 7 p.m. to midnight at Nation Lounge. Admission, love and light. Forward and full joy to Nation Lounge. Remember, this is happening. Roots Rock Reggae Dub Session, recalling Kwame Ture, and that's going to be happening on Monday, June 29. That's tomorrow. Because today's the 28th. It's tomorrow at iNation, Nation Lounge. And David Muhammad, good news that, and others will be there. Big Youth, good news that. It sounds as if it's going to be something really, really great. All right, so it's this again.
We still don't know why the power went out.
We still don't know why the power went out. Jamaica, when was it again? Was it 18th? Was it the 18th, Peter? Jamaica was literally thrust into darkness. The country was dark for 8 hours. 8 hours. Not a single section of Jamaica was lit. The entire JPS grid went out. Where were you when the lights went out? 8 hours Jamaica was in darkness. And how many weeks were gone now? How many days were gone now? And we still don't know why the lights went out. We still don't know what happened. But we have moved on to talking about something else. We are talking about, right now, third country nationals. And tomorrow we'll be talking about something else. And we still don't know why the lights went out. But we're okay with that. We're okay with that. Now we're talking about somebody who got killed at some place in Jamaica. Somebody stabbed somebody the other night at some place in Jamaica. And people are speculating as to who that is. My condolences to the family of the person who got killed. But, you know, the barrage of messages that I'm getting about, aren't you talking about this? Because this happened at this person's house. This happened in this person's yard. But we still don't know why the lights went out. And all of it is connected. All of it is connected. This is basically it. All right. So several African teams are giving a good account in the World Cup. This is a poor segue. But the Ivory Coast. Hey, Peter, how you doing? I see your team's gone through. All right. So the Ivory Coast has gone through. Senegal, go Senegal. And Cape Verde, oh God, we're looking at Cape Verde in a very, very serious way. Egypt, and who else has gone through? Who we're missing? So we have Ivory Coast, Cape Verde gone through? All right, but we know Senegal is on the next round, and we know Ivory Coast, Ghana. How could I not remember Ghana? All right, but we're looking good from the continent of Africa. We're looking good. Send me the names of the teams, please. I know I can Google and find out, but send me the names of the teams. I know somebody will do that. Remember, we're Waganists when it comes to football, so we're just in it for the World Cup, and we're all over it because it's happening right now. So it's just pure Waganist situation. We're watching though all of the racism that's coming with it. We're seeing what's happening with Haiti, for example, which is. For me, it is unbearable to even watch. We're seeing, as a matter of fact, I'm not watching it anymore. And this is why I'm struggling to find out who is there and who is not there. And I'm not talking about it much either, because even if we don't boycott it fully, we have to boycott it a little bit. Because really and truly, this one, FIFA, at the end of this, has got to fire itself. We're back with you fully inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa, and we're going into a whole different segment of the program. And our beloved brother is joining us from Trinidad. Darius Figueroa is a social researcher and author whose work focuses on power, resistance, and power relations, particularly within the Caribbean. His research critically examines colonialism, white supremacy, and dominant Western discourses while exploring liberation-centered perspective rooted in historically marginalized and silenced knowledge systems. He has published numerous books on topics including Caribbean politics, race, illicit trade, Islamic extremism, decolonization, and discourse analysis. Through his work, Darius Figueroa seeks to challenge dominant narratives, promote critical thought, and contribute to the development of alternative frameworks for understanding Caribbean society and liberation. Our brother Darius Figueroa is no stranger to this program. As a matter of fact, for many moons now, we have been talking about transnational organized crime in the Caribbean. We were way out ahead of the conversations we're hearing now, and a lot of what he said might be sounding prophetic to you, but it's coming from his research. Now, we mentioned Darius Figueroa, and we're hearing once again the disturbance on the line and the disturbance in the place, but we're going to get through this interview. Our brother has been a little bit ill, and I don't know if you want to talk anything about that, but welcome, my brother Darius Figueroa. Good to see you, because we're streaming live, and you are live on YouTube and also on Facebook and IG. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, greetings, my sister. Greetings. It's a great pleasure to see you again.
Yes, isn't it, though? And you're looking great. You're looking really good.
Well, imagine at my age, I've been given another life lesson.
I know, and we are with you on this journey, motivating you are as usual. Thank you so much, my brother. Brother Figueroa, we're looking at so much happening and so much has happened since we last spoke. But I want to backtrack a bit, because one of the things that you have underscored in this space, and so much that you have said, particularly in reference to Jamaica, the Caribbean, but particularly in reference to Jamaica, we see playing out. So much of the concerns that you had, Pax Mexicana and Pax Colombiana, and how that would play out in Jamaica and how that was playing out, we see that happening even as we speak. Your words are really prophetic, but at the end of the day, this is not prophecy. This is your research. This is something that you have been looking at for a very long time, understanding that this is exactly where Jamaica would have been if we didn't change course.
Yes, it's research-based evidence. And it's like speaking to brick walls, because you shouting and there is no resonance. There is nobody speaking back at you, because all you are hearing is the continued use of discourse that is describing a reality that never existed. The latest instance of this is the shield of the Americas, where you are using a discourse in the shield of the Americas describing the threat of the illicit drug trade that is in fact describing nothing. The lesson for Jamaica today is that Jamaica is now being rapidly integrated into the illicit trades of Europe, no longer America, because the cocaine trade has collapsed in America. So what is going to happen is that Jamaica is going to now experience what is transnational organized crime in Europe. There are counterflow pipelines that are bringing transnational organized crime groups of Europe into Jamaica because of this pipeline that has hooked up Jamaica to Europe. So the threat now has evolved rapidly. And the question now that arises is the national security apparatus of Jamaica at the level of the idea, at the level of the operational discourse, prepared for this new environment which has never occurred before in the history of Jamaica.
Hold that thought for me, Dr. Darius Figuera, because you have started out on a very, very serious note. We're all standing at attention. Let me take a quick. We're streaming live, listening to us on the 107s. Thank you so much. If you're on irfm.net, thank you. The mobile apps, thank you so much. But there's so many places that you can hear us, see us, and be a part of this conversation. Dr. Darius Figuera, you said a few things, and I want to take them one by one. You started out by referencing the shield of the Americas. So I want to go there because we are very concerned here on the island, and we see Dominican Republic saying that they have signed an MOU with the U.S. government regarding third country deportees within the framework of the shield of the Americas. We hear the Prime Minister of Jamaica saying on a radio program that his ambassador went to a meeting on his behalf. He thinks the meeting was a shield of the Americas. Jamaica has also signed an MOU third country deportations, so it has to be also within that context. You've also said that Jamaica, that whole thing is more or less smoke and mirrors, because Jamaica is entering into a new phase or new kind of transnational organized crime, which is not the U.S. as we've become accustomed to, if you will, but Europe. So I want to go there, but let us start with the shield of the Americas first. What is this, and what do you understand it to be, and what is this language that you have spoken to, which you say it is really a nothing burger? It is false arguments, if you will.
Yes, the aim of the shield of Americas is to project white power into Latin America and the Caribbean island chain, to protect the interests of white hegemony that is now under threat from China. So all regimes within the Caribbean island chain and Latin America who are deemed by America to be enemies of America have to be toppled. So it is a regime change agenda, and you see the focal point is Panama and the Canal. The new point now is Brazil. We have had change in Colombia because we have now an open, daring white supremacist president winning by some 200,000 votes. We have Argentina. So the target now is to make sure that Lula loses the presidential election and he is replaced by another white supremacist. So what is happening now, it is this militarist, adventurous form of white supremacy that reminds me very much of the Nazis.
Of the?
The Nazis.
The Nazis.
The National Socialists of Germany.
Yes.
If you follow closely the history of the National Socialists of Germany, Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, especially Joseph Goebbels, you even notice in the present World Cup, the jerseys that some of them are wearing in the World Cup reminds you of Waffen SS regalia.
Tonight.
That is the extent of which white supremacy in the Western Hemisphere is now seeking to exert hegemony over all of us. So the excuse for the Shield of Americas is that the drug trafficking cartels, quote unquote, I don't know what that is, are threats to America. They are terrorist organizations. And therefore now we have to go out into the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean and kill them when they have supposed drug lords on board. But the fact of the matter is, what Jamaicans must understand, these loads of cocaine, America has no cocaine market that is viable again. It has all collapsed. The cocaine market in America has collapsed to the extent where it is no longer viable to prop up the economies of Central and South America and the Caribbean again. Right now, North America is rapidly evolving into a manufacturing and export point for methamphetamine to the Pacific region, especially to the white colonies of the Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, and their colonies like Hawaii and Guam and things like that. America is also rapidly turning into a major exporter of cocaine to Europe. America is actually competing right now with the Caribbean for cocaine loads exported from America to Europe. The white heartland of America is now consumed with an addiction to methamphetamine never seen before in the history of America, and a wave of addiction like this. So your war on drugs failed miserably in America, but you want to come and apply the war on drugs to us.
And so that the point you're making is that this is all a lie in terms of this war on drugs that America has defined the Shield of America to be. But that this is the war on China in the region.
It is a war on non-white people who pose a threat to white supremacist hegemony. Just like how Europe is now headed for a war against the Slavs, because I see Europe escalating into a war against Russia. So it is a phenomenon once again in Europe of Napoleon and Hitler repeated again going up against the Slavs of Russia. So white supremacy lives a cyclical life, over and over, repeating the same strategy for race cleansing in the world.
And so how do you, and I'm going off a bit because I see you're making the connection, continental connection. How does, and you say Europe, but how does the UK fit into this? We're looking at what's happening now. Seems to be ungovernable. We have 7 prime ministers since Cameron. We see Keir Starmer on the way out, Burnham coming in, and the question of Farage and white supremacy. It seems that this is where it's heading, to Farage.
The embrace of Farage was facilitated by Starmer and his embrace of war against the Slavs. So when you were talking about war against the Slavs, it's like you give the fascists a shot of methamphetamine.
Mm-hmm.
Now he has lost power. I wait to see if his replacement continues with this war against the Slavs.
Mm-hmm.
But they are addicted to the same cycle over and over because that is the product of race hate.
Mm-hmm.
So when your neighbor house on fire, we, the other non-white races of the world, have to wet ours. And we now face the same threat in the Caribbean.
So how do you...
Those who believe Massa loves us are delusional.
And have you listened to and have had time to listen to the testimony by Carrie Lake, who is on her way to Jamaica as U.S. ambassador, and how she's laid out the security apparatus, if you will, and the fact that they are literally coming into Jamaica for and against China. Have you had time to... Yes. Your thoughts on that?
That is the latest whipping boy. The next wave that is going to be unleashed with the shield of the Americas is that they will pronounce Chinese transnational organized crime as a terrorist threat to America. And that means they are coming to Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Brazil, Panama, all those areas where have Chinese populations with some wealth and influence to run through them. That is the next play.
So we're going to be hearing about the Hong Kong Mafia next, I suppose.
Yes, they will be talking about that next.
Let me take a quick break, Prof. Hold on. He's going to continue until we're through with our conversation with Dr. Darius Figueira. But we're hearing you and loud and clear. And I hope you're hearing us on the 107s. Let me know how you're hearing from wherever you are. We're going to continue this conversation. He's going to be on with us for a while. One of the things you've said, Dr. Figueira, is that, and I know you've been writing about this, but so Jamaica in particular, you've said, is about to experience something that we have never experienced before in regard to transnational organized crime. Mm-hmm. I want you to pass that out for us, break it down, help us to understand, because one of the things that you have been doing over the last 2 years on this program is to explain what we have experienced, those who are behind it, the immigrant families and all of that, and everything that you have said so far, transnational organized crime in the Caribbean region, in Jamaica in particular, have panned out. And now you're looking again at the landscape and you're saying, as you have been warning us, it has changed. But now a warning to Jamaica is that we're about to experience something we have not experienced before. How is this different? How does this compare to what you have been talking about in this space? The war between Pax Americana, Pax Colombiana, and also something I know you have written about, which is the police killings in Jamaica.
The signal to Jamaicans from the time Pax Mexicana moved into Jamaica and took control of northern Jamaica, you know now that Pax Mexicana is there linking northern Jamaica to their presence in Haiti and northern Haiti. They control Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic is the bastion of the Colombian Don, but the Pax Mexicana is also there. Is that you are going to link up these Caribbean territories in a pipeline to Europe. And the Colombian Dons will follow. So what happens? Remember, there are powerful transnational organized crime groups in Europe who are in partnership with Pax Mexicana. And whenever they integrate an island in the Caribbean into a European pipeline, there is a counterflow. I learned that by studying what is going on in Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Martin, French Guyana, and how it has impacted St. Lucia and St. Vincent with the overflow. So the pipeline is going towards Europe, but there's a counterflow. And in this counterflow, European transnational organized crime moves back and forth. So when this counterflow begins coming into Jamaica, you will see a drastic and dramatic change in the nature of criminality in northern Jamaica. It is going to change radically. It is going to become so sophisticated that the national security apparatus is once again going to be found gravely wanting, not fit for purpose. And one of the most potent indicators of this new criminality is cybercrime. They shall assault every single database in Jamaica, whether it be government, private sector, or your personal database.
We have seen it happening already. It is not being reported on in any serious way. But we've had a report that the health, this is through the Ministry of Health, that database has been hit seriously, hacked. It's interesting, but there's no ongoing reporting, no follow-up. I myself have written a few questions for the Ministry of Health that I haven't got around to asking yet. I'm going to send them to Peter so he can put up on the screen. But so we see this happening, and it is, for me, this is frightening, and the fact that this is being so tamped down, that we've had this serious hack of our health information, and not much information as to the exact extent of this. What was hacked? Where is the investigation going, and so on. So you're saying that this is the new kind of crime, of criminal activities that we're going to say. But you spoke specifically to northern Jamaica. What were you thinking when you said northern Jamaica is going to be experiencing a wave of criminal activities?
The change becomes manifest on the ground in the zone of the island dominated by Pax Mexicana, and then it spreads. So, for example, in North Trinidad and Tobago, you see it. You see it manifest.
How is it manifesting?
Well, the change is now so all-encompassing, is that the only man in the street speaks about how it has changed.
Wow.
You see, you attack all databases to acquire data by which you build profiles and identities and you sell, you make money off of it. You don't need to stick a gun in somebody's face. You create profiles that you sell.
And
they attack the private sector with a vengeance.
Tonight.
That is what you are telling me, my sister, they are there already. The next thing is, from the time you start to see professionals cracking the safety boxes of bank safes, cleaning them out, then your message has reached. The message is there. When you see them robbing cash in transit and escaping unscathed, they have reached.
But that's happening in Jamaica right now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We are experiencing this now. We're experiencing this now. You're saying this is the knowing, and let me just remind our listeners that this is your research. This is your life's work. This is what you do. This is what you've studied. This is what you've written about, and this is what you continue to write about. So you're speaking from that knowledge, and you're saying you looking at the color, looking at the methodologies that are being used. This is what is leading, is also guiding your analysis of a situation, which is that the new methodologies that we're seeing. You're saying this is European, and it is a new kind of criminal warfare, which is not connected to the old transnational organized crime that we know, criminal activities, which will be connected to cocaine and so on. But
yes, it's so multifaceted that you don't depend upon one activity. You have to earn by specializing in a range, a menu of activities. So you have people who specialize only in acquiring data to sell identities. That is their job.
Yes.
Yes. And if you are retailing drugs, you know nothing about those who are cracking data banks. Everything is a cell that operates independent of the other one.
Independent.
They don't know each other.
So what do you expect to see? Because I know one of the things that you've looked at, and I don't know how deep you've gone into this, that there is and you said it before in this space, that there is a struggle between or among groups for supremacy on the island, and you specifically looked at what was happening in Montego Bay, St. Elizabeth, and so on. What are you seeing now in terms of that? And I know one of the things that you've always also said is that you are looking at the increase in police killings, and you've somehow you have questions about what would be what that would mean in the greater scheme of things.
But what has happened as the murder rate falls,
Policemen.
the national security apparatus elements within it interpreted to mean that they are faced with a lull, and some of them move to act to end it all. But the next reality we must face, and people don't speak about it, I do. The Colombian guns have been in the Caribbean since at minimum the decade of the 1970s. And they have made it their duty to corrupt the national security apparatus of the states of the Caribbean and the politicians. So the question has to be asked, why the increase in police killings in a period of time when the Jamaican murder rate has literally collapsed? And one of the possible scenarios you have to grapple with is that members of the national security apparatus of Jamaica who are under the thumb of the Colombian Don are now entering the war with Pax Mexicana.
And while this is allegedly, this is something that we have to look into.
Yes.
It is not foreign. This status quo, where members of the security apparatus work with whether it is dons or gangs or so on, and you are raising this question to say, are people, and why are you raising the question? Are you saying, is it that there could be a possibility of members of a security apparatus operating on behalf of Pax Colombiana, or?
Yes, because what you must accept and in the daily management of your national security apparatus throughout the Caribbean, you have to have structures in place that relentlessly seek corrupt members of your services. Because transnational organized crime has been in Caribbean for so long, and it is a necessary part of their business model to corrupt your state structures, that you must protect the interests of the people of Jamaica by relentlessly seeking out to unearth and remove these corrupt elements within your state structure. When you fail to do that, then you end up like Chicago under the days of Al Capone.
Do you see a possibility of us getting there, and how do we prevent it? You're looking at the Caribbean. I know this is your life's work. What are you seeing? Do we have the will? Jamaica seems to have gone knocking at America's door for entry into the shield of the Americas, because as you know, Jamaica is not in the shield of the Americas. But the fact that they have gone begging to take third country deportees into Jamaica, and Jamaica begged for that. I'm willing to debate anybody on that. And they begged for that because they want to go into the shield of the Americas. Does this say anything to you in terms of what Jamaica's thinking is, the government's thinking is on how to...
Yes.
Yes.
The first thing the government of Jamaica has to accept is that the fall in the murder rate has nothing to do with the success of Zosos. That has nothing to do with Zosos. That is because of the Pax Mexicana is here, and they took away the north of Jamaica from the Colombian Dons. And they got rid of the entire structure of the Colombian Dons in North Jamaica. That was the reason for the violence. Now that has been accomplished, the murder rate falls precipitously, just like how it has done in Trinidad and Tobago. From 2017 to 2024, Trinidad and Tobago was the war between both of them. The Colombians lost the war, and since then, 2025 to 2026, the murder rate in Trinidad has simply collapsed.
There's a new dawn in town.
Yes, accept that. The Jamaican government has to accept that and understand that there is a new order of power on the ground it has to wrap its mind around.
Hold that thought, a new order of power. You have been stressing it, but we're going to come right back there. Lights went out in Jamaica, entire darkness upon the entire country for 8 hours, and we still don't know while the lights went out. I don't know if you heard about it, Dr. Figueroa, but Jamaica was dark for 8 hours and we still do not know why. And nobody's saying why. And this is the weirdest of things. I think it's all connected.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the warships that are in the Caribbean, I find it very, very interesting that we somehow, we had, for example, the USS Fort Lauderdale docked in HORACE for about 3 days. No tourist ships came in, no reporting on it apart from on this program. And it's a ship that we know is an active warship that carries 700 Navy officers and war equipment, airplanes, you name it. But, it's still in the Caribbean waters and so on. So I'm looking at that to say, how connected is it all? And the fact that you are sounding the alarm in terms of what we are about to face here in Jamaica. I want you to pick up from there, because it is, even though you have been underscoring it, it is for me a frightening prospect.
Well, Jamaicans have to learn from Trinidad and Tobago's experience with the shield of the Americas and the attack on Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago was turned into a forward operating location for the assault on Venezuela, which came on January 3rd. So the question Jamaicans must ask themselves now, is Jamaica going to be the FOL for Cuba? That is the question. Because you are seeking to project power into Cuba, not only with your sanctions, but raw military power, just as you did with Venezuela. So I see the Venezuelan agenda being repeated with Cuba. So the question I have for Jamaicans, are you now becoming the FOL for the assault on Cuba? Because Marco Rubio, going into November midterm elections, wants Cuba knocked over.
See you tonight.
And we have, once again, if you just put that up, Carrie Lake, in her testimony, referencing China, and I want to bring China to the forefront, because she talks about concerns about China in Jamaica. She talks about the strategic infrastructure. She worries about China's involvement in ports, logistics, and other critical infrastructure with potential security implications. And this I want you to spend some time talking about, because when we started talking in this conversation, one of the first things you mentioned was the importance of Panama. So the maritime trade routes, like the Strait of Hormuz, are becoming weaponized in the South Caribbean seas.
Do you? Yes. Jamaicans must understand the importance of Jamaica to the whole affair. You see that Kingston transshipment container port? That is the home of the pipeline to Europe, and that is the major concern, because besides the Saucedo port, containerized port in the Dominican Republic, the next one in line in the Caribbean is the Kingston transshipment container port,
which Carrie Lake herself mentioned in her testimony, and went as far as to say that China owned 40% in that, and that it was untenable. So how does America propose to change that? Why is it so important, and how do they propose to change it?
Well, there is no economic rationale behind this militarist adventurism. It is pure white supremacy. because America simply is no exporting power in the world. The American oligarchs are all in China, and not only there to manufacture what they export to America, but they are there now investing in China because they have long recognized that the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world is dead. It is going to collapse. So they are hedging their bets. So this white supremacist military adventurous politics has now alienated the politicians of Capitol Hill from their own white oligarchy, because they are no longer moving in concordance with their oligarchs to protect the wealth and power of the oligarchs. Because to attack China is now to attack the oligarchs, because the oligarchs have no intention to disengage with China to look to reestablish no manufacturing base in America. America as a manufacturing base is dead, finished.
You know,
so they are now fixated on all the shipping channels of the world and all the ports of the world in which China dominates by ownership, and seeking now to cajole and pressure these governments to boot China out and put who in? Because America has nothing to give us. They want us to genuflect and bow at the feet of Massa, but this Massa is broke. Because when you view the volume of African young people in China today, the young generation of Africa has learned that the future is China, and get into China, learn from the Chinese, and then go back to Africa and apply it. It is time we of the young people of the Caribbean learn that too. Because apparently they don't want to learn it. They still want to go to America and face off with a racist structure. So the whole world's attention, the whole attention of the global South has now changed and gone to America, from the North Atlantic to China. And this is what has them deeply paranoid.
There's an old African proverb which we have up on the screen there that says, when two elephants fight,
yes,
it is the grass that is trampled, it's the grass that gets hurt. The grass in this case, we see Jamaica making some dangerous moves. I don't know. Jamaica seems to think that it can't do any better than it is doing. The Caribbean, CARICOM is impacted because we see the position of Trinidad and Tobago, the position of Guyana in relation to CARICOM, and we're looking at the disintegration of CARICOM. It wasn't that unified before, but we see the complete disintegration now. We also see the positions that Dominican Republic, which is the best friend to Jamaica in the Caribbean, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago have taken. I'm going to take a quick break, and I want you to talk to us about the wider Caribbean, how things are connected, and what all of this means for all of us. Separation between church and state. They have submitted a bill, I think, and which seems to be going through the process and is, I think, more or less a done deal. Don't know what it means generally, but this is what has happened over the last few days. There's always been this idea because I don't know if in reality there's really a separation, but this idea that there's a separation between church and state. But the Trump administration has come on now to say, and the bill has been submitted, there's no separation, there should be no separation between church and state. Does this take this back to the point you made earlier when you talked about this is beginning to look like a Nazi situation?
Because it is a fundamental principle of the founding fathers of America that there is a division that must not ever degenerate. So that will go all the way to the Supreme Court. The founding fathers insisted on it. But that is just another play on the electorate because they are in deep panic. The question is this.
Yes.
We are being threatened with military adventurism to force us to remain subservient to a weak massa because of what China offers. Let me ask Jamaicans a question. Is the Jamaican government in China lobbying with the Chinese airlines to begin long-haul flights to Jamaica? Are they lobbying with the Chinese stores to bring Chinese to Jamaica as tourists? Is Jamaica seeking to tap into the wealth that flows within the internal economy of China, where the distribution of income in China is so different? The average person in China spends money like it is water.
Well, let me give you an idea of what is happening, the conversation that is happening in Jamaica, airline connection and travel. You know, on the ground here as Pan-Africanists, we have been lobbying for direct flight between Jamaica and West Africa or other parts of Africa for decades. That has not happened. Nobody has paid us any mind on that. What we have are discussions with the UAE, possibly Saudi Arabia, and Colombia for direct flights, and these are all about to happen. The Minister of Tourism has announced something that he called Tourism 3.0. I haven't had a chance to go through that yet on my program, but it fits right into the wider picture. Let me ask you your just off the top of your head, what does that sound like to you when you look at the UAE? You know, the conversations they're having with Saudi Arabia, the conversations they're having with Israel, and the definite flight connection between the UAE and Jamaica and between Colombia and Jamaica. These are the conversations that's happening on the ground here. They are done deal, actually.
Yes, because your perception is so flawed because of your subservience to white supremacy, is that you can't even visualize what is good for Jamaica. You are supposed to be leaving out Saudi Arabia and Colombia and the Emirates and in China. Because when you see every single massa quality name brand is bleeding money in China. Imagine the first day Gucci opens a shop, it sells out, all the stock gone. And we of the Caribbean, not in that market, looking to bring them by the droves into our economy as tourists. What is wrong with us? You know what is wrong with us? Our mind is addled by white supremacy. We're still thinking like Uncle Tom and Stephen. That is what is wrong with us. Do you know why you must knock over Cuba? Cuba is the only country existing in the Caribbean island chain today whose economy fits snugly into the Chinese economy. And China has been relentlessly moving to integrate Cuba into its economy. So they have to knock over Cuba. because China is literally turning Cuba from being dependent on carbon energy to green energy. So that means you can no longer sanction their oil. Can Massa sanction the sunlight? So that is why they must knock over Cuba. But the rest of us in the Caribbean, we have others who understand well. One government in the Caribbean who understands the necessity of hitching our wagon to China is the Commonwealth of Dominica.
So, sir.
People in Jamaica must see the pictures of that hospital in Roseau that China built and outfitted for the people of Dominica as a gift.
And this is one of the things we were talking about in the early 2010s when we saw China coming in. How do we leverage China-Jamaica relations, China-Caribbean relations? How do we not make the same mistakes that were being made in Ghana and in Central African Republic and in Angola? Because they rolled out the Angola model here in the Caribbean, so that there's a bit of a conflict. But what are the mistakes likely to result in? Because we have the Dominican Republic, we have Guyana, and of course we're bringing Guyana in, even though not necessarily a part of CARICOM in the way that we being South America, but Trinidad and Tobago leading this process, and Jamaica is so ambivalent. I'm not even sure where Barbados stands. Barbados seem to be playing a really interesting game. We're not understanding it. But what does it mean for CARICOM? What does this mean for the Caribbean countries? Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?
What is going to happen is that they're going to keep the collections. They're going to talk, and gun. And everybody is going to go their own way. I see Barbados under Miyamoto is preparing more and more to be integrated into Europe.
Specific time.
And all of that, and if you notice, the legislation they are bringing to deal with gangs and the drug trade and things like that, they are actually preparing themselves for the back flow, the forward and return flow of they becoming integrated into the illicit trades of Europe. It is clearly apparent that Miyamoto in her third term is sending that message when you follow them. So they are now looking towards Europe for integration. They are no longer looking towards Massa, the traditional Massa. So what happens is that Jamaica now finds herself in a quandary. Because Jamaica as Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean needs to be more fully exposed to the dynamism of the Chinese economy in the 21st century. And we lack the political will to do it.
This is what
Jamaica has serious MOUs and I think treaties, but serious arrangements and agreements with China from the Portia Simpson administration to now. And so it boggles the mind to think that Jamaica finds itself trapped between two elephants fighting and must ask itself some questions, because how do you... We know China is a kind of a country, and you can tell me if we're right on this. We haven't seen or heard much from China in response to anything. They do not necessarily respond. What is written in their white paper is what is written in their white paper, and they do what they say they're going to do, no matter how long. So it seems to me as if Jamaica is tightly tied into these agreements with China, but at the same time, appearing anti-China in its agreements with the United States, and the fact that we have heard from the Prime Minister and from others, whether current or otherwise, within the JLP administration, that really they can't say no to the United States. What does this mean for Jamaica?
Well, what happens to us in the Caribbean is that China follows our actions closely because they have a geopolitical strategy. And we continue to miss out on both Chinese moves. The boldest Chinese move is the CHANG port that they built in Peru, which was built on the Pacific coast of Peru and links CHANG, Peru, directly to China. So the goods are now leaving China for CHANG Port Peru, and from CHANG Port Peru, it is going by road to the rest of Latin America. So with the new government in Peru, I am expecting that Massa will now move to lick up CHANG Port and therefore put Peru back into the Stone Age. So what is happening is that Massa cannot compete, so therefore he cannot respect our sovereignty, which he never did, but now he has to trample us underfoot. And what is going to happen to us is that we are going to get so dependent upon them, is that when Trump leaves the White House, he leaves subservient plums for presidents that follow him to keep plucking. And we are now going to fall further and further behind in the 21st century race for AI innovation. We are going to become a backwater of the world, whilst Africa finally becomes leading edge.
Africa. And so what does that mean for us? Because it would seem to me, and I made a point earlier, I know I saw the many ministers, the Minister of Culture, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and possibly the Minister of Health, I'm not quite sure, but there are quite a few ministers who have gone into Ghana in recent times, and there are lots of agreements being signed between Jamaica and Ghana. We're seeing an upping of the ante. Jamaica was always close to Ghana, so I'm thinking this is not much of a difference. But this is it seems to me what the Caribbean needs to do. As you talk about the African Renaissance that we've been talking about for the last 10 years, but we're seeing, we have a better idea of how this is playing out now. Is this where the Caribbean should be looking to? Mayor Motley at one point seemed to be looking in that direction. We see the decisions made in terms of direct flight between Nigeria and Ghana and other countries, not Ghana, but Barbados and other countries and so on. With the exception of Rwanda, interestingly enough, and Ghana, Jamaica seems more to be looking to Epstein, the kind of Epstein class countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Colombia, and so on. So that are we making, to what extent are we making a very dangerous mistake in terms of how we are doing geopolitics and our understanding of how things are unfolding around us?
If we were serious, but to be serious, you have to have the worldview. And to have the worldview, you cannot be subservient to white supremacy. We have the means to piggyback on select African countries and their governments who are very close to China. In fact, they are very organic to China. Kenya, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, even Nigeria has joined that group now. Burundi, Lesotho, and most important, the closest African government to China, the Republic of South Africa. Just the South African connection between the Caribbean is enough for us to go to the South African government and integrate ourselves with them to piggyback into China. So rather than we looking to go individually and roam
From what?
an entry point into China, have South Africa, we learn from them, and we move into them. South African goods are entering China now duty-free. South African agricultural produce, South African mangoes, plums, whatever, are now in China duty-free. And the Chinese are just simply learning what is South African. In return, South Africa is buying Chinese electric vehicles and getting themselves off of gasoline vehicles. So if we want to learn, well, learn from the relationship between South Africa and China, Tanzania and China, Zimbabwe and China, Kenya and China. And now Nigeria has learned and they have joined the line.
And why is this important to do?
Because you learn from people who have pioneered and done it before rather than you reinventing the wheel. So they are integrated at the level of government. They are integrated at the level of their education. They are really integrated at the level of research, where China is passing on technological knowledge to these citizens of these countries who are going back home to implement it. So you're getting everything from AI innovation they are getting exposed to in China, to quantum mechanics, right through, and they're going back home and unleashing it on their societies.
How important is CARICOM to this, and what are your views on CARICOM? Because the Caribbean individually, individual countries, seem to have already made their choice in terms of who they're hitching their wagon. So you talk about Dominica as opposed to what we see happening with the other countries, including where you are, which is Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. So CARICOM has failed to live up to its charter.
Yes.
Because all it is now is a talk shop. But at the level of an integrated common market, it never was. It never was. And we have a University of the West Indies that has failed the West Indies. That institution has failed us. Ask that university what are its organic ties to China. And let's hear the answer.
And this is what
we do still have this disturbance on the line, so we apologize for that to our listeners. We're trying. We do not know where it's coming from. Let's just say that. But So I suppose I go back to the question I asked, which I think you have answered already. So where do we go from here? Is it a grassroots situation in terms of how we prepare for that which you have said is about to hit us, including Jamaica, when you put all of this in context and you make all the connections, or we continue to lobby governments to say there has to be a change? Jamaica made a decision, for example, to sign an MOU for third country deportees. So because Jamaica is trying to get into the shield of the Americas, but you have also, and you're writing about how Trinidad is trapped in the shield of the Americas. So
yeah, the shield of the Americas is of no relevance to Trinidad and Tobago. That is just playing games with the behemoth of the north. And as of no relevance, the shield of the Americas is of no relevance to drug trafficking in the Caribbean. That is just white power being projected. That is serving massa for a new round of new colonial domination. A round of new colonial domination in the third decade of the 21st century that is going to damage us going into the rest of the 21st century, where we will now become the jetsam and flotsam of the world. While Africa attains finally its liberation at the level of the idea, the African diaspora in the Caribbean will be marginalized. That is the pain of the whole thing. So the destination of the great enslavement is mired in backwardness, while the source of the great enslavement has finally broken its chains.
So look to Africa. Look to Africa. And, you know, Rastafari has been saying this forever on the island, right? And this is something that has been resonating with globally. So many have gone into Africa. In Jamaica, where Rastafari was born, the birthplace of Rastafari, that is a faraway dream as anything. In other words, we're looking to the UAE, we're looking to Saudi Arabia, we're looking to Israel. As a matter of fact, Israel is massive on the island. And of course, we're looking to the United States. So here we are. I think, as usual, Dr. Darius, you have given us as much as you can in an hour and some. And it's food for thought. We will go now and reflect upon what you have said, as we have been reflecting over these last few years. And thank you so much for being there in this position to share your knowledge and your knowing with us. We're happy that you're in good health. Once again, to say we are happy to have you back on our screens and on our phone lines, and we hope to talk to you again. I'll give you a final word just to wrap up this segment, but thank you so much, Dr. Darius Figueroa.
Thank you very much. The reality is, as a people, outside the level of the politicians, we must be unified as one people, all of us, from the same sources. We must bond together as one people throughout the Caribbean. It is time to say, enough is enough. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you so much, Dr. Darius Figueroa. As always, when our brother comes on the line, we have to think about where we are as a people, as a nation, as a region. He, of course, will be back with us another time as we look at how the geopolitics is unfolding, as we look at where we are situated and where we are situating ourselves geopolitically in this nation. The decisions that our government is making, the decisions that the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, is making. He tells us that, you know, and whether he tells us directly or he telegraphs it, we are getting the impression that Jamaica doesn't have a choice. This is basically what they're telling us. Jamaica doesn't have a choice but to hitch its wagon to the United States. But what does that mean for us as a people? What does that mean for us as a nation? What does that mean for us as Caribbean people, African people in the diaspora? We're making some very, very serious mistakes. And one of them is this decision that Jamaica is making to be part of the Shield of the Americas. And as a result of that, participating in what is now human rights abuses, because we have human beings who are being literally trafficked. Do we have the minister? Did we carry Minister Chang? We didn't carry Minister Chang. We have it. I think we have 3 minutes. The big A is in the house, but we do have 3 minutes. Let us hear from Minister Chang refuting the point that there are no third country deportees going into St. Mary. Let us hear that. All right, we're standing by for that.
Story about third country nationals in St. Mary. And firstly, there are no third country nationals in our country who have been sent here by anybody, by the United States government at all. In addition to that, they have indicated a particular villa Airbnb operation as a location where they're staying. That, of course, is totally false. However, the story does indicated on one of the 7:30 news is that Mr. venue that they'll be host. We have no such arrangement. We have had no discussion with the facility. In fact, nobody in the ministry is aware of it. I gather from historical connection that it's an Airbnb facility. We have no discussion about putting anybody there and placing any immigrants in that facility. The story has caused significant distress, and we're asking the media to withdraw it because there have been threats sent to the facility to come to ask them to destroy the place. There's significant backlash in the community about that. We have an MOU with the United States, which when executed, we will ensure the population, the Jamaican citizens, kept informed. There's no need to use a irresponsible call like that. That creates a lot of social tension out there, and the possibility of actually creating mischief by individuals who are concerned attacking a business facility, a legitimate business facility. That is not responsible action. The ministry will keep the country informed at the time, and the media is free to call the communication department of the Ministry of National Security and Peace for information whether by any such mischief is being carried out.
Minister Chang there, and we still don't know who turned off the light. We still don't know what happened where Jamaica was in darkness a few weeks ago. But here we are. So, it's out there. We're ready for the revolution. Minister Chang is saying that, the stories that you're hearing, that there's a house in St. Mary, I think people are saying it's Grantstown or something like that. I was going to call Big A to say, Big A, we are not xenophobic, but it looks like we're going to have to go march because our parish is participating in human rights abuses, and I know you would march with me. Well, this was the thing that was going around, that the first 25 batch of deportees would be coming in and that they would be going into St. Mary. But the minister is saying nothing of the sort. And what's interesting about that is that, it was on mainstream media, newscast, and so on. So I don't know. I'm not going to be judging my colleagues in the media. They must know their sources. They must know where they got that information from. They can always withdraw it. They can always say, no, that it bursts open. They can always say that's not where they were going. But anyway, me and Big A and Peter, because Peter got first married to each other. Me and Big A and Peter did go march and we're not xenophobic. But because it's human rights abuses, we will not put up with it. You're not going to carry nobody inside here who are forced to come in. These people are not coming off their own free will. So that's where the human rights abuse come in. And anyway, we're ready for the revolution like Stokey Carmichael. Here we are. See you next week. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Antoinette Brown. Thank you to all those who participated, those who called in, wrote in. And listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for checking in from wherever you are checking in this morning. We're seeing you there. Scores and scores of messages that have come in. We're making way for the Big A. Thanks to the entire team. Shabane Henry, Antoinette Brown, Peter Broadbar. My name is Kabo Ma'at Kiru. We'll see you next week, inshallah. Walk good. Tell a mother one howdy. Take care of yourselves. Make sure you drink water. The time is hot. So make sure you're rehydrating. See you next week. Unless Big Katie wants to say anything to me. Otherwise. No, we're good. All right. There you go. Walk good.